Before we begin tonight's dark romance, Wanderer of the Night, settle into the quiet. Let the noise of the day loosen its grip on your shoulders, and its stories of forbidden love, jealous goddesses, volcanic revenge, and resurrection soothe your restless mind. Then don't forget to subscribe to this Temple of Shadows, and check out the Dark Romance Mythology playlist waiting for you. I want you to tell me something too. Where in the world are you listening from tonight? And what hour did the night find you? Your whispers feed the darkness here. Now, close your eyes, my midnight companion. Tonight we descend into Hawaiian mythology, into the molten tropical doom of Hiʻiaka Lohiau, a tale of love, betrayal, jealousy, resurrection, and the price a goddess pays when her heart burns hotter than her volcano. Once upon a time in the lush islands of ancient Hawaii, there lived powerful goddesses and fearless mortals, whose destinies became entwined. This is a Hawaiian myth of love and betrayal, a dark romance steeped in volcanic fire, jealousy, death, and resurrection. It is the saga of Pele, goddess of volcanoes, her youngest sister Hiʻiaka, and the mortal chief Lohiau of Kauai. Their story unfolds in a tropical land of molten lava and ocean mist, where passionate love and vengeful rage collide under the shadow of doom. High on the big island of Hawaii, within the fiery crater of Kilauea, dwelled Pele, the volcano deity. Pele was beautiful, capricious, and tempestuous, as fierce and changeable as the lava that flowed from her mountain home. Though she ruled the fires of the earth, Pele's heart could be as tender as it was hot. One fateful time, Pele was restless with longing. She yearned for love that could quell the loneliness burning inside her. One night, Pele lay down to sleep beneath a fragrant hala tree near her crater. As she drifted into a deep trance, her spirit wandered afar, on a dream journey. In her dream, Pele's spirit flew over the dark ocean, carried by the night breeze, until it reached the distant island of Kauai. There, in the moonlight, she heard the distant pulse of drums and joyous singing. Pele had arrived at a great festival in the far-off north shore of Kauai, where the people were celebrating with hula dancing and chants by torchlight. The night air was warm and sweet with the scent of tropical flowers. Firelight flickered on swaying palm trees as dancers moved in graceful rhythm. In the center of the gathering, Pele's gaze fell upon a handsome young chief, beating a drum and chanting to encourage the dance. He had noble features, skin glowing in the fire's amber light, and a voice that rang with both power and tenderness. This was Chief Lohiau, the ruler of the Kauai village of Hawaiian. As Pele watched Lohiau perform, something stirred in her heart. The great volcano goddess, who had seen ages come and go, was utterly captivated by this mortal man's beauty and spirit. Lohiau did not realize who the mysterious woman was, yet he felt her presence immediately, an air of majesty around her, eyes like dark embers reflecting the firelight. When their gazes met, a spark passed between them, as if fate had drawn them together. Pele approached Lohiau with a graceful sway, and the crowds parted in awe before her. None recognized her as a deity, but all sensed a woman of high rank or supernatural mana in their midst. Lohiau greeted Pele with courtesy and fascination, inviting her to sit beside him on a woven mat. The festival continued around them, but Lohiau only had eyes for the enchanting stranger, who had appeared like a living flame. That night, and for several nights after, Pele remained in Hawaiian as Lohiau's cherished guest. Under the tropical moon, their affection grew quickly. They spent their nights together in Lohiau's thatched house near the shore, talking softly, exchanging gentle kisses, and sharing each other's warmth. Pele allowed Lohiau to embrace her and kiss her lips, but she denied him further intimacy, playfully promising, "Not yet, my love. When we are reunited in my homeland, then you shall have all of me." Though eager and enthralled, Lohiau respected Pele's wishes. He found himself falling deeply in love with this passionate, mysterious woman from a distant land. For 3 nights and days, Pele and Lohiau enjoyed a blissful dalliance. They strolled under palm groves by day, Pele teaching Lohiau ancient songs, and at night she danced for him by the glow of embers, her movements as hypnotic as the flow of lava. Lohiau's people whispered amongst themselves, wondering at the identity of the lovely visitor, who had so swiftly won their chief's heart. Yet Pele remained aloof to all but Lohiau, focused entirely on him. On the third dawn, as pale gold light touched the eastern sky, Pele knew her time, in this dream form, was ending. Her spirit had to return to her body on Hawaii. With a heavy heart she turned to Lohiau as he slept by her side, gently brushing a strand of hair from his face. He stirred awake and realized she was preparing to leave. Panic and sorrow filled Lohiau's chest. He did not want to lose her. He clutched her hand, pleading with his eyes for her to stay. Pele leaned down and pressed a final tender kiss upon Lohiau's lips. "I must return to my place, to Hawaii, the land of the sunrise," she whispered. "But this is not the end for us. I will send for you, my beloved. I shall prepare a home for us, atop the great volcano Kilauea. When all is ready, I will send a trusted messenger to fetch you to my side." Lohiau's eyes glistened with tears. "How will I know the messenger is truly from you?" he asked, in a hushed voice. "If a stranger comes claiming I sent them, ask who they serve," Pele answered. "No man can speak for Pele. I will send a woman, one of my own kin. Only a woman of divine blood could journey so far to reach you. Trust her and do not go with any man who might falsely claim to come from me." With great reluctance, Pele slipped from Lohiau's arms. "Farewell for now, my love," she breathed. "Keep your heart steadfast. We will be together again soon, and then nothing shall part us." Lohiau watched, sorrowful, as Pele departed his house and walked toward the forest. Moments later she vanished with the dawn, her spirit returning across the sea to Hawaii as swiftly as a flame carried on the wind. Lohiau thought for a moment that it had all been an incredible dream, so sudden was her disappearance. The villagers found him distraught and wandering the beach, calling her name. He realized Pele was truly gone. Clutching his chest, Lohiau felt a sharp pain of emptiness. Over the next days he could neither eat nor sleep properly, pining for the goddess who had stolen his heart. Each sunset he would gaze out over the ocean, longing for a sail or canoe that might bear Pele's messenger to him. Unknown to Lohiau, Pele had returned to Hawaii in spirit, but her mortal lover's anguish was so great that it soon threatened to claim his life. Back on the big island of Hawaii, deep within the fiery pit of Umamu at the summit of Kilauea volcano, Pele awoke from her dream journey. Her spirit reunited with her physical form. She opened her eyes to find herself home, amid the glow of lava and the smell of sulfur. At first Pele smiled, remembering Lohiau's affectionate touch and the promise she had made. But as the hours passed, longing welled up in her. She could still feel Lohiau's absence, a hollow ache inside her immortal heart. Steam vents hissed around her, reflecting her agitation. She knew she must act quickly to bring Lohiau to Hawaii. If she waited too long, mortal life being fragile, something could befall him. And her desire for him was like a fire in her veins. It would not be quenched until he was with her again. Gathered in Pele's volcanic home were many of her siblings, sisters and brothers of the Pele family, each with their own powers. Among them was Pele's most beloved youngest sister, Hiʻiaka, as well as numerous other sisters known also by the name Hiʻiaka with various epithets, and brothers who controlled elements of wind and storm. Hiʻiaka Kapoleo Pele, her full name meaning Hiʻiaka in the bosom of Pele, had been Pele's companion since they voyaged to Hawaii from far Tahiti. Indeed, Pele had carried Hiʻiaka as an egg in her bosom on the long canoe journey to these islands. Hiʻiaka was a goddess of healing, dance, and forest growth, gentler in temper than Pele, yet brave and strong. She was Pele's favorite and most loyal sister. One by one, Pele asked her siblings for help. She implored them, "Who will journey to the distant island of Kauai and bring back my lover Lohiau?" At first several older sisters demurred. They had no interest in braving the long journey over the seas and through unknown lands for Pele's mortal paramour, especially knowing Pele's volatile temper should anything go wrong. Pele's brothers likewise refused, murmuring that such a task was perilous and not their responsibility. Some siblings exchanged wary glances. They loved Pele, but feared her jealousy. None dared risk incurring her wrath should they fail, or succeed only to earn Pele's suspicion. As Pele grew increasingly frustrated by her siblings' refusals, her simmering impatience manifested in the volcano. The molten lake at the crater's heart bubbled and spat fiery droplets, and tremors rumbled underfoot. She needed someone she could trust to go and return swiftly with Lohiau. Just as Pele's anger was about to boil over, Hiʻiaka stepped forward. Hiʻiaka had been quietly listening at the edge of the crater, concern written on her face. She alone truly understood Pele's heart among the gathered kin. Clad in a garment of green leaves and red luau blossoms, Hiʻiaka moved with a dancer's grace despite the rugged terrain of the volcano's rim. She was younger and smaller than Pele, but there was a calm strength in her bearing, like a deep forest pool that runs still and clear, yet holds great power. "I will go," Hiʻiaka announced, her voice steady and clear. The other sisters fell silent in surprise. Hiʻiaka was Pele's dearest companion. If Pele trusted anyone absolutely, it was her. Pele's lava-red eyes narrowed, studying her little sister's face. Hiʻiaka continued, "I will journey to Kauai and bring back Lohiau to you, sister. No task is too difficult, if it eases your heart's pain." Relief and gratitude flooded Pele's face, quickly followed by concern. She knew the journey would indeed be difficult and dangerous. Kauai lay across hundreds of miles of open ocean and many intervening islands. The path would lead through strange lands filled with potentially hostile beings. Mo'o, demonic lizard spirits of pools and caves. Kupua shapeshifters, perhaps unfriendly chiefs, and natural peril. Though Hiʻiaka was a goddess, her powers were of healing and growth. She would have to also be a warrior on this quest. Pele came closer and embraced Hiʻiaka warmly. "Thank you, my beloved sister," she said softly. Pele's long dark hair, wreathed in smoke, mingled with Hiʻiaka's garland of forest flowers as they hugged. Pele's heart for a moment felt lighter now that hope was in reach. However, Pele was no fool. She knew how handsome Lohiau was, and that even the most virtuous might be swayed by such a man during a long journey. Her fiery nature made her prone to suspicion. Jealousy already lurked in her mind. Gently holding Hiʻiaka's shoulders, Pele looked into her eyes. "I accept your gracious offer, sister," Pele said, "but I must lay conditions on this journey." "Name them," Hiʻiaka replied solemnly. She respected Pele's concerns and would honor any reasonable request. "Firstly," Pele declared, "you must return with Lohiau to me within 40 days. I cannot endure waiting longer, nor keep my temper in check beyond that time. Swear it, Hiʻiaka." Hiʻiaka nodded. 40 days, a short time considering the distance and unknown trials. But she believed she could fulfill that if all went well. "I swear I will do all I can to return by the 40th day," she promised. "Secondly," Pele continued, her eyes flickering with intensity, "you must not allow your heart to be tempted by this man. Neither you nor any companion of yours shall embrace or lay with Lohiau on the journey. He is mine. Do not betray me, Hiʻiaka. Do not so much as kiss him, nor let him kiss you. Guard yourself against his charm if need be." A slight flush came to Hiʻiaka's cheeks at the directness of Pele's words. "I will not betray you," she said firmly. "Lohiau shall be as a sacred charge in my keeping, to be delivered untouched to you. I have no intention other than fulfilling your desire." Pele studied Hiʻiaka's earnest expression, and believed. Still, the volcano goddess's nature made her add a warning. "Know that if you break this trust, sister, my anger will be as explosive as this crater. I would not hold back my wrath." The air trembled as if in agreement, a burst of heat emanating from the molten lava lake nearby. Hiʻiaka took a deep breath and bowed her head slightly. "Understood," she replied. Pele, calmed by Hiʻiaka's acceptance, now thought of what her sister might need for success. She decided to bestow gifts upon Hiʻiaka for the journey, boons of power from the volcano itself. With a wave of Pele's hand, the smoke around them swirled and formed into tangible objects at Hiʻiaka's feet. First, Pele granted Hiʻiaka the sight of the seer, a supernatural foresight, like a third eye. "This will sharpen your visions of what lies ahead," Pele explained. With it you can perceive spirits and know the truth in men's hearts. Let it guide you past unseen dangers. Hiʻiaka felt a tingling in her forehead as she accepted this invisible gift of insight. Second, Pele scooped a handful of volcanic ash and embers, blew upon it with a fiery breath, and it transformed into a pair of glowing stone gauntlets, which floated to Hiʻiaka's arms, then vanished, merging into her form. This is Kali Mahika, O Kilauea, the strong arm of Kilauea, said Pele. It will endow you with strength beyond mortal or normal divine limits, that you may overcome any foe in battle. When you strike with your hand, it shall have the force of my volcano behind it. Hiʻiaka flexed her slender hands, sensing latent power now coursing through her muscles, a reassuring gift for the battles she might face. Third, Pele removed from her own waist a magnificent red pau skirt woven of lightning and flame. Pau Awila, the skirt of lightning. The garment shimmered with patterns of flashing light and deep scarlet, as though thunderstorms were woven into its fabric. Pele draped this around Hiʻiaka's hips. Wear this magic skirt, Pele instructed. It carries potent protective magic and other strange powers. It will shield you from many harms. And remember, a pau is a woman's garb. Let it remind all that it is a woman's power that undertakes this quest, not to be underestimated by gods or men. It felt light as a feather, yet she sensed immense energy within it. Humming like captive thunder, she inclined her head gratefully. I feel its strength already, sister. I will use these gifts well. But before Hiʻiaka departed, she had a condition of her own to voice. Hiʻiaka remembered something very important to her heart, something she needed Pele to promise in return. Sister, Hiʻiaka said gently, taking Pele's hand. I ask one promise from you as well in exchange for my service. Hiʻiaka's thoughts turned to the things she loved most on this island. The ʻohiʻa Lohiau forest of Puna, with its crimson flower blossoms, and her dearest friend who often dwelt among those groves by the sea. While I am gone, Pele, Hiʻiaka said quietly, I ask that you do not harm my beloved forest in Puna, nor my dear friend Hopo who lives there. Hopo is as a sister to me. She has my heart's trust and I cherish her. Please, in your impatience or anger, do not hurt Hopo or disturb the Lohiau groves we planted together. At the mention of Hopo, some of the watching siblings exchanged meaningful glances. They all knew of the close bond between Hiʻiaka and the mortal girl Hopo. Hopo was a dancer of Puna, whom Hiʻiaka loved deeply like a dear companion. Indeed, some whispered, there was a soulful, perhaps romantic connection between the goddess and Hopo. Hopo had taught Hiʻiaka the arts of hula dancing and lei making, and in return Hiʻiaka had used her powers to make the ʻohiʻa forests of Puna flourish for Hopo's enjoyment. Hopo often danced in those groves, earning her the affectionate nickname Hopo the Dancing Stone for her graceful sway. Pele chuckled softly and squeezed Hiʻiaka's hand. Is that all? Of course I will protect your friend Hopo and your forest, little sister. I have no quarrel with her, or your loa trees. Why would I harm what you love, when you are doing so much for me? Hiʻiaka gave a relieved smile. Thank you. I know sometimes your temper, she trailed off diplomatically, but I trust your word. Pele waved off the concern, eager for Hiʻiaka to depart swiftly. Go with my blessing, dear sister. Return quickly, and bring me joy when you return with Loiā. Hiʻiaka would set out to retrieve Loiā for Pele, swearing not to let passion interfere, and to hasten back in 40 days. Pele in turn swore not to vent her wrath on Hiʻiaka's cherished friend, or forests in her absence. They sealed this agreement as sisters and deities, under the watch of their assembled kin. In that moment, even as an ominous thrill of fate hung in the air, Pele and Hiʻiaka were at peace, united in purpose and affection. Without delay, Hiʻiaka made ready to leave Kilauea. She donned a travel cape of green tea leaves for luck, and carried with her a small bundle of provisions, food for any mortal companions and offerings for any spirits on the way. The enchanted lightning skirt wrapped around her, invisible gauntlets of strength on her arms, and a gift of foresight keen in her mind. She felt prepared for the unknown road ahead. Before she could set off, one of Pele's longtime servants approached, a guardian spirit of the family named Pauapalaalai, which means fern skirt. Pauapalaalai was a minor goddess in the form of a woman wreathed in ferns. Loyal to Pele's clan for ages, she bowed to Hiʻiaka. "I will accompany and aid you on this journey, if you'll have me," said Pauapalaalai softly. Having served the family for so long, she was almost a spirit without a permanent body. But her knowledge was vast. Hiʻiaka smiled and nodded. "Your company is most welcome, dear friend." Though Pauapalaalai's presence was subtle, she could fade in and out like mist. Hiʻiaka was glad not to be entirely alone as she departed. With a final embrace from Pele and farewells from her other siblings, Hiʻiaka descended the volcano and began her quest. Stepping out of the crater, she took one last look back at Pele's towering form on the rim, wreathed in volcanic smoke and hope. Hiʻiaka clutched her magical skirt tight around her waist, determined to succeed. Hiʻiaka's path first led her down the slopes of Kilauea toward the coastal region of Puna, her own home district. Puna was a land of dense forests, flowering loha trees, and a rugged shoreline where the ocean roared against black lava cliffs. Here lived Hapo, her dear friend, in a seaside village nestled among the hala trees and ohia groves. Before truly leaving Hawaii Island, Hiʻiaka yearned to see Hapo one more time, to bid farewell and reassure her. She followed a familiar trail through the orchid-filled jungle, breathing in the sweet scent of ginger and yellow hibiscus. The birds of the forest chirped in recognition of the goddess of the wilds passing by. Even the trees seemed to lean toward her lovingly, their leaves brushing her shoulders as if in blessing. Hiʻiaka found Hapo at their favorite spot, a crescent beach of Puna, where white sand met a turquoise bay. Hapo was dancing joyfully by the water's edge when she saw Hiʻiaka emerge from the forest. Hapo was a beautiful Hawaiian woman, with smooth umber skin and bright, expressive eyes. She wore a skirt of green leaves and a garland of red loha blossoms, picked from the very trees Hiʻiaka's magic had helped grow. As a cool sea breeze blew, Hapo's movements matched the gentle swaying of palm fronds, and for a moment, Hiʻiaka paused to admire her friend's dance, a hula of serenity and grace. She ran barefoot across the warm sand to greet her friend. They embraced tightly, two young women, one mortal, one goddess, but their friendship was so deep that such distinctions faded. Hiʻiaka inhaled the comforting smell of salt and flowers that clung to Hapo. "What brings you here in such haste?" Hapo asked, noticing the determined set, Hiʻiaka's brow, and her travel attire. "Your cheeks are flushed as if from excitement or worry." Hiʻiaka managed a smile. "I have come to bid you farewell for a time, dear Hapo. Pele has given me an important task. I must journey across the sea to Kauai, to fetch someone very precious to her." Hapo's eyes widened with concern. She took Hiʻiaka's hands. "Across the sea? That is a long way to go. Who is so precious that Pele would send you so far?" "Chief Lohiau Kauai," Hiʻiaka answered. "Pele has fallen deeply in love with him. She visited him in spirit, and now longs to have him by her side on Hawaii. I volunteered to be the one to bring him here." Hapo's lips parted in surprise. She knew of Pele's capricious passions. "Lohiau? I've heard he's very handsome," she said gently, searching Hiʻiaka's face. "It's quite an adventure you undertake, but I worry, the distance, Pele's fiery moods, and do you even know this man you seek?" Hiʻiaka shook her head. "I have not met him, but Pele's heart is set, and I owe my sister loyalty. I've been given powers to protect me, and a time limit to return. I intend to succeed, no more than 40 days. If all goes well," Hiʻiaka replied. "Perhaps sooner. I will come back to Puna as soon as I can, with Lohiau safely in tow." Hapo tried to smile bravely, but Hiʻiaka could see the glimmer of tears in her friend's eyes. They both knew that even gods could meet peril on such a quest, and the thought of separation made Hapo's heart ache. To lighten the mood, Hapo forced a playful tone. I shall miss you. Who else will dance with me at midnight? Or help me string loha blossoms into light? You'll find me dreadfully lonely. Hiʻiaka laughed softly. You will dance, and the trees will dance with you, dear Hopo. Keep our loha forest safe and thriving for me. Pele herself has promised to watch over you and the groves, while I'm gone. At this, Hopo seemed relieved but still skeptical. Pele promised. I hope her mind doesn't change. But I trust you, Hiʻiaka. If you believe it, then I shall feel safe. They spent a few more moments walking along the beach, arms around each other's waists, savoring the companionship. The morning sun climbed higher, glittering on the ocean waves. It was time. From a nearby canoe landing, Hiʻiaka's companion Paupala Alai, and a local fisherman, had prepared a small outrigger canoe for the first leg of the journey, to cross the channel from Hawaii to the next island of Maui. Hiʻiaka's foresight had guided her to arrange this vessel in advance through one of Pele's priests, in Puna. The canoe bobbed gently in the clear water, loaded with freshwater gourds and some food wrapped in tea leaves. Hiʻiaka turned to Hopo and pressed a woven lei she had made into Hopo's hands. It was a garland of lahua, blossoms and male vine, symbol of affection. Keep this until I return. It's a little piece of me with you, she said. And take this. She removed a white seashell from a cord around her neck, a lucky charm she always wore. She tied it around Hiʻiaka's neck, for safe travels, a bit of the sea's protection. Hiʻiaka felt a surge of warmth. She kissed Hopo's forehead. Mahalo, my friend. I will see you soon. Until then, aloha, farewell and take care. They embraced one last time, long and lovingly, the surf lapping at their feet. Then Hiʻiaka climbed into the canoe. Paupala Alai, who moved lightly as a breeze, sat near the bow, and the sturdy fisherman took the paddle. With a push off the sand, the outrigger slid into the blue water. Hopo stood on the shore, waving, her figure growing smaller as the distance grew. Hiʻiaka fixed the image of Hopo, the beloved friend, dancing by Puna's sea, firmly in her mind and heart. It gave her strength and resolve. As the canoe caught the morning wind, and headed out into the rolling Pacific swells, Hiʻiaka whispered a prayer. O gods of the sea and sky, guide me on this journey. Let the waves carry me safely, and swiftly. Protect my friend Hopo and Puna's forests, until I return. The sea breeze answered with a gentle sigh, and the canoe skimmed onward toward the horizon. Though Hiʻiaka left the Big Island's shore by canoe, her journey across Hawaii Island itself was not yet complete. The channel crossing to Maui would take time, and there were still parts of Hawaii to traverse before she reached the nearest point for crossing. The fisherman paddled the canoe westward along the coastline of Hawaii Island, planning to hug the shore until reaching a suitable spot to head across to Maui. They sailed past towering sea cliffs, draped in greenery, and waterfalls that tumbled directly into the ocean. By midday they skirted the edge of Hilo Bay, where the great Mauna Kea volcano loomed inland, its peak capped with clouds. They did not stop in the town, as Hiʻiaka was eager to press on, but the fisherman offered a bit of news. Some travelers on Hilo's shore had warned of strange weather and fog in the Puna forest inland. Hiʻiaka furrowed her brow, sensing something amiss. Fog and sudden storms could mean the presence of a mo'o, a malevolent lizard spirit, named Panewa, known to lurk in the Puna Hilo region's jungle. It so happened that the coastal route would bring them near Panewa Forest, a place famous for its dense canopy, perpetual mist, and the legend of a shape-shifting mole woman who haunted it. Hiʻiaka realized they might have to confront this creature if it blocked their progress, but she was undeterred. This was exactly the sort of challenge Pele's gifts would help her overcome. By late afternoon, Hiʻiaka directed the canoe ashore just beyond Hilo, at a small fishing village at the edge of Panewa Forest. She thanked and paid the fisherman for his service with a string of shell currency, and sent him back to Pune. From here, She intended to proceed on foot, cutting across land to shorten the route to the northwestern cape. It was risky to trek through Panewa's jungle, but it would save days of paddling around the island's longer coastline. The sun was low, its rays filtered red gold through the thick banyan and ohia trees. Vines dangled like serpents. The villagers nearby watched from afar with anxious expressions. None dared approach, fearful of the forest spirit stirred up by the molten. Hiʻiaka gave them a reassuring wave, and proceeded resolutely into the twilight jungle. Deeper into the canopy, visibility dropped. Tendrils of fog snaked between tree trunks. Pauapalalai glided at Hiʻiaka's side, her presence a calming one. The fern goddess was in her element among plants, and could whisper to the ferns and trees for guidance. Before long a figure emerged from behind a large mossy rock. It was a woman, or at least it appeared to be. She was strikingly tall and wore a cloak of fine mist. Her skin had a peculiar gray-green sheen, and her hair was wet and hung like dripping kelp. When she opened her mouth to speak, Hiʻiaka glimpsed a flash of something sharp, like a fang before it quickly resembled normal teeth again. "Who enters my domain?" the woman asked with a silky, menacing tone. Her eyes glowed faintly yellow in the dim light. Hiʻiaka guessed at once that this was the Moa sorceress Panaoa herself, mistress of this forest. By appearances she could shift from a monstrous lizard form into this deceptive womanly shape. Hiʻiaka's sight gift tingled in her mind, confirming the spiritual power coiled within this seemingly human figure. Danger was here. "We are but travelers passing through on an errand of Pele," Hiʻiaka answered calmly. She kept her posture relaxed but alert, one hand resting lightly on the fold of her skirt, ready to draw on its magic if needed. "We mean no trouble, Lady of Panaoa. Let us cross your forest and we will be gone swiftly." At the mention of Pele, a flicker of fear and anger passed over the Moa's face. Panaoa's voice turned into a hiss. "Pele's minions are not welcome here. The great Moa of these lands do not bow to the volcano woman." Suddenly the fog around them thickened unnaturally, swirling as Panaoa exerted her power. With her shape-shifting magic she changed forms in the blink of an eye. One moment a woman, the next a bank of fog rolling towards Hiʻiaka, enveloping the tree. In the mist, Hiʻiaka could hear mocking laughter that echoed as if from many directions at once. She quickly chanted an Oli chant under her breath, an ancient Hawaiian invocation to dispel illusions. "We pass through in wartime or peace. Begone, O enchanted mist. Let the brightness return to the depths of the forest." As her words resonated through the humid air, a current of divine energy rippled outwards. The swirling fog hesitated, thinning slightly. Panaoa realized her mist form was being countered by Hiʻiaka's incantation.
With a snarl, the Mo changed tactics. The fog coalesced swiftly into the shape of a torrential rain that lashed down upon Hiʻiaka and Pauapalalai. The raindrops were stinging and cold as needles, another of Panaui's known forms. Sharp rain, kinoa. The downpour was so dense it obscured vision completely. Waterlogged, whipping leaves slapped at Hiʻiaka's face. Pauapalalai, the fern goddess, shielded herself behind Hiʻiaka, whispering urgently, "Be careful. She's trying to drive us off or confuse us. Perhaps we should retreat." Hiʻiaka squinted into the blinding rain. Retreat would only embolden Panauiu. No, better to confront the Mo'o and eliminate this threat, so that future travelers, and Hiʻiaka on her return journey, could pass safely. Steeling herself, Hiʻiaka reached down to the ground and touched the soil, calling upon her own affinity, nurturing life and growth. Her fingers dug into the earth and she intoned a Malay chant for growth and binding. Iulu, Iulu Kalao, Iulao, Iulalao, Iulalai, Pue Pue Aye, I Kakuao Kamoo, Hey, vines suddenly sprouted from the ground at incredible speed, nourished by the torrent of rain. They grew thick and fast like writhing snakes, guided by Hiʻiaka's prayer. Within moments, dozens of vines, from wild morning glory to sturdy rope-like roots, shot up around a large banyan tree, weaving a living net. They lashed out into the storm. A furious screech cut through the sound of rain. The vines had found their target. They wrapped around something solid that struggled mightily just a few yards ahead. The rain began to slacken and then ceased abruptly, revealing the moa's true form, where the vines writhed. Panawa, in her anger, had lost some control of her shapeshift and partially reverted. Half woman, half dragon, she thrashed against the binding vine. Her upper body was humanoid, face contorted with rage, but her lower body was that of a huge moa lizard, scaly and powerful, with clawed limbs and a tail lashing about. The vines strained to hold her, and Panawiu's followers, other little moa spirits in the forest, hissed in distress from the treetops. Hiʻiaka seized this chance. She stood tall and commanded the forest. Ho'ohei, tight. At her word, the vines cinched and knotted around Panawiu, pinning her arms and coiling around her reptilian torso. The more the moa fought, the more the enchanted greenery tightened, like a python squeezing its prey. Pauapalalai stepped forward now, her eyes flashing with her own quiet anger at the spirit who threatened them. Being a fern goddess, Pauapalalai extended her arm and an eruption of ferns sprung up at Panawiu's feet, tangling with the vines, and further immobilizing the moa in a thick mat of greenery. With the moa ensnared, Hiʻiaka approached carefully. Panawa snapped her jaws, baring fangs and spitting curses in the Hawaiian tongue, but she could not free herself. The forest had literally taken her prisoner at Hiʻiaka's behest.
Leaning in, Hiʻiaka spoke softly yet firmly to the captured creature. Panaʻaua, listen to me. I could destroy you here and now for your defiance, but I would rather not shed more blood on this journey. In truth, moa blood was poisonous and best avoided. Also, Hiʻiaka's nature was compassionate when possible. Yield and swear to leave travelers in peace, henceforth, especially those under Pele's protection, and I will spare you. The moa's eyes flashed with hatred. Curse you, daughter of Pele, she rasped. If I were free, I would devour you. She struggled anew, but the vines only bit deeper, drawing an anguished groan from her. Hiʻiaka frowned. Mercy seemed lost on this one. Perhaps a different approach. She closed her eyes and summoned a bit of lightning from her skirt's powers. The enchanted paus she wore began to crackle with energy. Hiʻiaka raised her hand, now charged with crackling electricity, and let a small but potent bolt of lightning leap forth, striking the ground inches from Panaʻaua's coiled tail. The earth sizzled and a black scorch mark appeared, smoking. Panaʻaua flinched in genuine fright at the display. A goddess wielding lightning was beyond what she'd expected. Eyes wide, she finally capitulated. Stop. I yield, she cried. I will let you pass, and I shall not harm your path. Only cease this torment. Hiʻiaka gestured, and the lightning dissipated from her hand. She nodded, satisfied enough. Very well. Your life is spared today, Panaʻaua. But know this. And here Hiʻiaka's voice took on an echo of Pele's fiery wrath. If ever you or your spawn endanger innocent travelers or defy the Pele family again, I will return and finish what we started. You will become nothing but a withered vine in your own forest. The moa shuddered. I understand, she muttered bitterly. Hiʻiaka touched one of the vines gently. Release her, she commanded the forest. Obediently the vines and ferns loosened and slithered off Panaʻaua's body, receding back into the undergrowth as fast as they'd grown. Free, Panaʻaua reverted fully to her human-like guise, nursing bruises on her arms. She glared at Hiʻiaka, but with fear now underlying the glare. Begone from here, Panaʻaua spat. and take my curse with you. May you find as much trouble on every island as you found here." It was a hollow parting shot, but one Panaoa could not resist giving. Hiʻiaka did not deign to reply. Paupalalai stuck out her tongue at the mo'o. As the two left her behind, the dense forest grew quiet again, and Panaoa slunk away into her domain to lick her wounds. For the moment, the path through Panaoa forest was clear. Once they were safely out of earshot, Paupalalai turned to Hiʻiaka with a broad smile. "You were magnificent, the way you bound that mo'o. Even I was impressed. And I am a vine spirit of sort. It was not just me. The forest itself aided us. I merely asked it to grow." She silently thanked the guardian spirits of the jungle for cooperating. Hiʻiaka's gifts as the healer of the land were proving invaluable, just as Pele had foreseen.
They continued on, making their way through the now serene forest. The ground was damp and glistening from the earlier conjured rain, but sunlight began to pierce the canopy in golden shafts, indicating the storm had truly passed. The defeat of Panawa seemed to lift a curse, for birds began to sing again and a cool breeze carried the fragrance of ginger blossoms. Hiʻiaka and her companion emerged from the jungle by the next morning, having walked all night to stay on schedule after the delay. They arrived in the district of Hamakua on the northeastern coast, where steep valleys and rolling hills stretched out. Hiʻiaka rested briefly near a cascading waterfall, bathing her feet and cleaning off the mud and leaves from the forest battle. As they resumed the journey, they encountered a young woman standing by the roadside in a small hamlet. She was adorned with a bright red lehua flower behind her ear, and held a pair of beautiful flower leaves in her hands. She bowed respectfully when she saw Hiʻiaka. "Greetings, travelers. I am Papalehu, daughter of this district's chief." The young woman introduced herself sweetly. Papalehu's eyes shone with awe. She could tell these visitors were not ordinary. Perhaps the aura of divinity around Hiʻiaka and Paupalalai was apparent, or news had already spread of Hiʻiaka's quest and victory over Panawa. "I saw a vision last night of a goddess passing through our lands, and here you are. May I ask, are you Hiʻiaka, sister of Pele?" "I am," Hiʻiaka answered kindly. "We are on a journey for Pele, passing through Hamakua." Papalehu smiled broadly and stepped forward, draping one of the fragrant flower garlands around Hiʻiaka's neck, and the other around Paupalalai's. The leaves were of red lehua blossoms and male leaves, a gesture of aloha and blessing. "Please accept these leaves as a token of our gratitude and respect. The people of these lands have long suffered under the Mo Panawa's dark weather. This morning we woke to clear skies. Word is spreading that Pele's sister tamed the demon of the forest. You have our eternal thanks." Hiʻiaka blushed humbly. "I only did what was necessary," she said, "but I am glad if your people benefit." She gently inhaled the leaves' scent. It invigorated her after the long night. Papalehu's face flushed with excitement. "If it pleases you, I would be honored to join your journey at least a little way. I may not be a goddess, but I know these lands, and can offer hospitality or guidance as you travel toward the sea." Hiʻiaka was about to protest. She didn't want to endanger the mortal girl, but Papalehu added earnestly, "I have prayed at Pele's Haya shrine, and danced in honor of Hiʻiaka in hula. To assist you even briefly would be a dream. And I'm not afraid of hardship." Paupalalai nodded indulgently at Hiʻiaka. Perhaps having a local guide for a short while would be helpful. And she did bring these lovely leaves. She remembered Pele's warning not to get too entangled with others, but escorting a chief's daughter for a short distance might smooth their passage. "Very well, Papalehu. You may accompany us until we reach the coast. We plan to cross to Maui from Upolu Point." Papalehu clapped her hands happily. "Thank you. I promise I won't slow you down." She hurried to gather a small satchel of food, roasted breadfruit and fish from her home, and then rejoined them, practically glowing with pride. The trio continued northwestward, traversing green valleys and skirting the base of towering cliffs. Papalehu proved to be cheerful company, chattering about local legends and pointing out famous sights. "There, that is Waipio Valley, home of ancient kings," she noted at one point as they stood atop a lookout gazing down into a deep valley carved by a river, with taro patches glimmering below. "And over those hills is the lair of a monstrous shark. who once plagued our bay, but I think he fled when the mo left. Hiʻiaka listened and took mental notes. Though pressed for time, she appreciated the glimpses of the island's rich lore Papalahu offered.
As the day wore on, they came upon a broad river mouth at Wailuku River. A sturdy wooden bridge spanned the rushing water. On the near side of the bridge, however, two hulking figures blocked the way. These were Pele and Noho, a pair of moho who had taken human-like form. They were notorious in this region for demanding toll from travelers wishing to cross, and if displeased, they would drag the unlucky travelers under the bridge to drown, or devour them. The two moho men glowered as Hiʻiaka, Pauapalale and Papalahu approached. One was very tall and thin, Pele, the other shorter but broad as a hog. Noho. Both wore shabby kihei shawls and had eyes that gleamed reptilian green. "Stop there," Pele barked. "Crossing this bridge costs a hefty payment. What have you to offer, strangers?" Papalahu whispered quickly to Hiʻiaka. "These are evil moho who extort our people. Be cautious." Hiʻiaka stepped forward calmly. "We will not be paying any toll," she declared. Noho, the squat moho, sneered, revealing teeth filed to sharp points. "Then you will not cross alive." In a flash, both moho shed their human disguises. Their skin rippled into scales, faces elongated into lizard-like snouts. They lunged at Hiʻiaka with inhuman speed, claws outstretched, but Hiʻiaka's reflexes, enhanced by Pele's gifts, were swifter. She sidestepped Pele's attack and caught the creature by one arm. With supernatural strength, she swung the tall moho as if he were weightless. His body smashed into Noho, who had been charging from the other side. The two lizard men collided with bone-crunching force, tumbling to the ground. Before they could recover, Hiʻiaka acted decisively, summoning the strength of Kalima Kilauea in her arm. She seized both moho by their scaly throats in each hand. With an almighty heave, she lifted them off the ground, one in each hand. An astounding feat. As each moho was larger than a big man, the creatures writhed and hissed in panic. But Hiʻiaka's grip was unbreakable. She strode to the edge of the bridge where beneath, the Wailuku River churned through a rocky gorge. Hiʻiaka's eyes flashed with fierce righteousness. "This ends now," she spoke, voice echoing. "No more shall you prey on innocent." She brought the moho heads together hard. A thunderous crack as their skulls met. Their bodies went limp, stunned but not yet dead. Wasting no time, Hiʻiaka hurled each moho over the side of the bridge with all her might. They sailed through the air like rag dolls. With a final wail, Pele and Noho plunged into the raging river far below, where the currents caught them in an unforgiving embrace. Rocks jutted from the water's surface. The moho's body struck them with sickening impact. The river quickly swallowed them and carried them away, battered and broken, out to sea. Even if they survived the initial fall, they would never return to this place. Papalahu, who had watched the battle wide-eyed and holding her breath, now exhaled in amazement. You defeated them as easily as a child snaps a twig," she stammered. The young chiefess could hardly believe her eyes. Hiʻiaka, modestly brushing off her hands, simply nodded. "They chose their fate. Let this bridge be free for all travelers now." For a moment, Papalahu looked exhilarated. The legendary deeds happening before her were beyond anything she imagined seeing firsthand. But then her expression wavered. She clutched Hiʻiaka's arm suddenly, an expression of dread crossing her face. Hiʻiaka followed Papalahu's gaze. On the far side of the now cleared bridge stood a band of armed men, warriors bearing the insignia of the local chief of Maui, who apparently controlled this valley. At their head was a regal but severe-looking chief, wearing a feathered cloak and helmet. This was Chief Olapau of Iao Valley, on the island of Maui, a proud alii chief, known for his strictness and superstition. It dawned on Hiʻiaka that she had crossed a boundary. The Wailuku River likely marked the transition from Hawaii Island to the next island, Maui. Indeed, perhaps some magical crossing or narrow channel separated them, for the mythic geography can blur. In any case, these men clearly were Maui inhabitants, not Hawaii locals. Olapau stepped forward, flanked by nervous warriors. They had seen everything. The goddess swinging momo like toys and tossing them into the river, their knuckles white on their spears. The men looked unsure whether to fight or flee. Hiʻiaka released Papalehu's arm gently and approached the Maui chief with calm authority. She offered a respectful Hawaiian greeting. Aloha, iku alii, I am Hiʻiaka, traveling on an errand for Pele of Hawaii. She did not mention her divinity outright, though it was likely evident. Often Hawaiian protocol allowed beings to speak modestly of themselves. Chief Olapau eyed her and the companions warily. We saw what you did to those demons. For that, this valley perhaps owes you thanks. Those momo have troubled travelers for too long. He spoke loudly enough for his men to hear his magnanimity. However, he went on, lifting his chin. I cannot allow unknown strangers to pass through my lands without proper invitation or tribute. It is custom to request hospitality properly from a chief when entering his domain. She inclined her head. You are right. We entered your beautiful valley unannounced. Allow me to formally ask, O Chief Olapau, may we and our small party have your hospitality for this night? We have traveled far and would be grateful for rest before we continue in the morning. It was a proper malakahia, a request chant for entry, albeit spoken plainly. In Hawaiian tradition, even gods respected the concept of asking permission of land guardians or hosts. Olapau, however, was a proud man, and perhaps unsettled by Hiaka's power. He narrowed his eye. Hospitality? You appear capable of handling yourselves without help, he said brusquely, and I have little food to spare for unplanned guests. This was almost certainly false. His lands were fertile, but he seemed to be finding an excuse.
One of his kahu attendants whispered, she might be a goddess. It would bring ill luck to refuse. But Olapau, perhaps threatened by the prospect of a deity's presence in his household, or offended by the notion of Pele's kin walking freely here, crossed his arms stubbornly. I cannot take in every wanderer who passes by. If you are on urgent business, then be on your way. There is no lodging for you in Iao tonight. An uncomfortable silence fell. Tapulohu looked at Hiʻiaka apologetically, shocked by the chief's rude refusal of the hospitality request. A grave breach of the spirit of aloha. Hiaka's expression cooled. The polite approach had been rebuffed, and by custom, this was a slight not just to her but to Pele, whom she represented. Hiaka's gaze went distant and hard for a moment. Pauopolaʻalai shifted at her side, sensing Hiaka's displeasure, yet outwardly, Hiʻiaka simply nodded. As you wish, chief. We will move on. Olapau seemed relieved that she didn't argue or force the matter. He grunted and motioned his men aside to let them pass. The warriors parted, some bowing slightly to Hiʻiaka, others avoiding eye contact out of superstitious fear. Hiʻiaka, Pauopolaʻalai, and Tapulohu quietly walked through, continuing along the path out of the valley. As dusk began to fall, they climbed a ridge that would take them out of Olapau's district. Behind them, Olapau's warriors returned to their village. The chief gave one final disdainful look over his shoulder at the departing trio, then dismissed them from his thoughts. Night fell as Hiaka's group made camp under a kukui grove on a hillside. Tapulohu made a small fire and passed around pieces of roasted sweet potato from her satchel. Hiaka was quiet, reflecting on the day's events. Tapulohu finally broke the silence. That chief was terribly insulting. I'm so sorry he treated you so. Pauopolaʻalai chimed in. Truly, one should never refuse a melukaha from a guest, mortal or divine. It is sacred courtesy. Hiaka stirred the fire absently with a stick, sparks swirling upwards like little stars. It cannot be helped. Some chiefs let pride cloud their judgment. We will survive one night without his halamats and poi. Not so much for the lack of shelter, she was used to sleeping under the sky, but for the principle of it. If she let it go entirely unanswered, it might embolden others to disrespect travelers or even the gods. She decided on a subtle lesson for Chief Olapau. Sleep, both of you,
she told Papulahu and Pauopalalai. I have something to do but will return swiftly. Pauopalalai nodded knowingly, curling up to rest. Papulahu yawned, fatigue overtaking her excitement, and soon both companions dozed off by the dying ember. Hiʻiaka rose, her silhouette lit by moonlight now that the clouds had parted. Quiet as a cat, she slipped back down the trail toward Iao Valley. Olapau's village lay in darkness, aside from a few torches. Hiʻiaka cloaked herself in a whisper of wind to avoid guard detection. She reached the edge of the chief's compound and found Olapau's hale house. It was easy to identify by its size and the carved poles outside.
According to Hawaiian belief, powerful persons like chiefs often possessed multiple souls or a second soul that could wander while they slept. Hiʻiaka, being trained in lua, sorcery, and spiritual arts, as well as hula, knew how to catch a soul outside the body. She waited until well into the night, when Olapau was assuredly in deep slumber. Then, from a hidden vantage, Hiʻiaka began to chant a soft, rhythmic oli that wafted gently into the chief's house, like a lullaby. Kaio hanehala po, e halamai, e lalamai, e waho, io hanehaomo, hiala ola kakino e mola, O wandering soul of the night, come forth, fly out, O sleeping soul. The body lies unaware in slumber. Her words were imbued with ancient magic. Within the darkened hut, the sleeping chief Olapau's chest rose and fell, peacefully, but gradually, a faint, glowing form began to sit up from his corporeal body. It was Olapau's second soul, drawn out by Hiʻiaka's summons. This spectral form looked exactly like the chief, but translucent and light as air, tethered by a thin spiritual cord to his sleeping physical self. The soul, in a dreamlike state, drifted out of the hut and into the moonlit clearing. Hiʻiaka stepped from the shadows and confronted the ghostly figure. Olapau's soul looked at her with confusion, as if in a daze. Hiʻiaka spoke sternly, but quietly. Olapau, you who would not grant hospitality, now you wander defenseless in the night. The soul's eyes widened as it recognized Hiʻiaka. Now he realized she was indeed a powerful being. The soul opened its mouth in a silent plea, perhaps finally feeling fear and regret. But Hiʻiaka had already decided the penalty. With lightning speed, she reached out and grasped the spirit by its neck. Her hand glowed with an ethereal light as she tightened her hold. The ghost gurgled without sound, thrashing in panic. Hiʻiaka then lifted Olapau's soul off the ground, much as she had with the maw, and in one mighty motion slammed it against the trunk of a palahale tree. A large flat boulder nearby also bore that name, but here it could be a symbolic rock. There was a sound like a distant thunderclap as spiritual energy surged. Olapau's soul gave a shuddering jolt and went limp, then instantly vanished, recoiling back to its body in shock. Inside the chief's hut, Olapau woke with a scream, clutching his chest. His attendants rushed to him, finding him pale and trembling, his eyes darting wildly, as if he had seen a nightmare. He gasped for breath, feeling as though he'd been strangled and beaten. Yet no mark was on him. A spirit attacked me, he stuttered. In his mind he knew exactly who. Hiʻiaka's stern face was etched in his memory. Dawn found Chief Olapau, a changed man, shaken by the nocturnal assault on his soul. The villagers whispered that he must have angered some deity. Olapau himself kept silent about the details out of shame, but he never again refused hospitality to travelers who asked properly. The spot where Hiʻiaka dashed his soul against the stone gained a reputation as a place to avoid. Thus did Hiʻiaka exact a just punishment for his earlier discourtesy, without taking his life, a lesson both to him and to others about honoring aloha.
Hiʻiaka returned to her camp in the Kukui Grove before sunrise. Papulahu and Pauopalalai awoke to find Hiʻiaka calmly brewing a bit of mamaki leaf tea over revived coals as though nothing unusual had happened. Papulahu stretched and remarked she'd dreamt of hearing someone cry out in the night, but it seemed far away. Hiʻiaka only smiled mysteriously and handed her a cup of warm tea. Drink, and let's be on our way, was all she said. Papula, who had accompanied them to the border of Maui, but now with morning light she realized they were near the northern coast where she should probably part ways. They climbed a grassy hill and before them lay the expanse of the Alanuihaha Channel, the sea gap between Maui and the Big Island's tip. In the distance to the northwest across another channel the island of Molokai was faintly visible as a blue silhouette on the horizon. I think I shall return home from here, Papalahu said somewhat regretfully. The journey beyond would involve crossing the ocean or venturing into strange islands. Her father likely expected her back too. Thank you, Lady Hiʻiaka, for allowing me to travel with you this far. I will never forget the things I saw and learned. Take this back and perhaps we'll make new ones together someday. Papalahu's eyes shone. Safe travels and victory to you, Hiʻiaka. She paused, then added softly, I pray that you find happiness at the end of your quest, whatever form it may take. Perhaps she sensed the inner conflict or challenges that might come. With final alohas, Papalahu headed back down the slope toward her village, occasionally looking back and waving until she was out of sight. Hiʻiaka and Pauipalalai were alone again, facing the glittering ocean. The sun was rising bright and clear. Hiʻiaka's heart felt a mix of emotions: gratitude for the allies and triumph so far, tempered by the weight of distance still to cover and the unknown fate of Lohiau on Kauai. Molokai awaits and beyond it Oahu and then Kauai. The clock of Pele's 40 days is ticking. By her count several days had already passed with the adventures on Hawaii and Maui. There was no time to waste. Pauipalalai nodded. Molokai is. I sense a different mana from that island. Be prepared. Hiʻiaka closed her eyes and sent a quick prayer to Kanaloa, god of the sea, for a smooth crossing. They descended to a small cove, where fishermen tended taro patches. With polite requests and the mention of Pele's name, Hiʻiaka secured a canoe ride to Molokai on a fishing outrigger that was heading there to trade. The fishermen, unlike Olapau, were honored and a bit fearful to have Hiʻiaka aboard, and they rowed vigorously to make quick passage. As the Maui coastline receded and the canoe bobbed over the channel waves, Hiʻiaka reflected on her journey so far. She had battled monsters, lost a potential companion, Papalahu, to fate, and upheld divine justice. Yet the greatest challenges likely lay ahead on the more distant island. Clutching the little seashell necklace Hopo had given her, Hiʻiaka whispered, Guide me, ancestors. Protect us, spirits of these waters. The wind answered by filling the canoe's small sail, pushing them swiftly onward toward Molokai's shore.
Molokai's emerald cliffs came into focus as the canoe neared the island. Known as a place of powerful sorcery and lonely valleys, Molokai had its own mystical reputation. Hiʻiaka and Pauopololai disembarked at the eastern end of the island, thanking the fishermen who then continued their route along the coast. Molokai's air felt different. A wild, restless wind whipped through the pandanus trees along the shore. Not far inland, sheer cliffs rose, and beyond them high plains could be glimpsed. The travelers started westward, skirting the southern coast. They soon reached an area famous, or infamous, for its relentless wind, a place called Konakakai. Here the trade winds howled almost constantly, flattening grass and rattling the coconut fronds. Hiʻiaka and her companion had to lean forward to walk against the gusts. Suddenly, through the whistling air, they heard distant wails and shout. As they approached a cluster of huts, they saw a gathering of women, wives and mothers, crying and clinging to each other in despair. A few old men sat with solemn faces. It was a scene of mourning. Hiʻiaka gently halted a woman who was weeping by the roadside. "Auntie, what troubles this village?" she asked compassionately. The woman looked up, eyes red. Seeing Hiʻiaka's noble stance and kind face, she poured out her sorrow. "O traveler, a great evil has befallen us. A tribe of Mo'o, lizard spirits, dwells in the high ravine. They have been stealing our husbands and sons," she sobbed. "At night, these Mo'o women come as seductive enchantresses, luring the menfolk away. Those who follow never return. We fear they are eaten or enslaved by those creatures." Fresh cries erupted from others around, confirming this tragedy. Pauopololai whispered to Hiʻiaka, "Molokai Mo'a are known for such tricks, vile creatures." Hiʻiaka's blood boiled at the thought of families torn apart. "How long has this happened?" she asked. "Many moons,"
an elder answered, holding a grieving young mother. We have prayed and tried to fight, but mortal spears cannot touch these spirits. They demand offerings and still take who they want. Our village is nearly devoid of grown men now. Only the very old and very young remain. Hiʻiaka raised her chin, eyes flashing. No more, she declared. I am Hiʻiaka, sister of Pele. I will drive out these mo'o and return peace to your village. At that name a ripple of hope passed over the villagers. They had heard whispers of Pele's sister journeying through the islands. Now here she was like an answer to their prayers. Though exhausted from travel, Hiʻiaka could not ignore their plight. She asked the women for details of the mo'o lair. They pointed towards the upland hills where an isolated valley lay, a place taboo to the villagers now. The mo'o tribe, led by a matriarch, had made their nest in a cave by a waterfall up there. They were numerous, maybe a dozen or more, and could shapeshift into alluring women or hide as geckos on trees. Hiʻiaka comforted the wives, promising to do her utmost to rescue their loved ones, or at least avenge them. She took a calabash of salt and some Thai leaves from the villagers, Hawaiian protections against evil, and set off with Pauopololai toward the forbidding valley. Reaching the narrow entrance of the ravine, Hiʻiaka felt a clammy chill. Despite the warm day, the air here was cold. The sunlight struggled to penetrate the dense canopy of koa trees overhead. Pauopololai remarked softly, I smell dark magic, be on guard. Cautiously, they went deeper. Soon they came upon what looked like a natural arena, a clearing near a cascade pool, strewn with bones and broken tools. Hints of the missing men's fates weighed on Hiʻiaka as she saw those remains. From the cave by the waterfall slithered out the mo'o tribe. At first they appeared as beautiful, scantily clad women, with flowing black hair and skin glistening with water. They cooed and giggled, trying to project innocence, but Hiʻiaka saw through the glamour beneath the illusion. Their eyes shone reptilian, and their tongues occasionally flicked unnaturally. In her woman form she was tall, with long hair and a commanding presence, wearing a garland of kukui and shells. Who comes into our sacred valley uninvited, she hissed, though her lips smiled. Have you perhaps brought yourself as a gift to us, goddess? We've not tasted divine flesh in ages. The mo'o tribe dropped their pretense and snarled. The matriarch screeched, You dare threaten us in our domain? We are many, and you are but one goddess and her pet fern. Seize her sisters, their forms blurred. Some lunged as giant lizards, scales bristling. Others remained in humanoid shape, but with claws extended and mouths gaping to reveal needle-sharp teeth. But Hiʻiaka spun gracefully aside. The mo'o collided into each other, stunned. Hiʻiaka struck out with her lightning skirt, quite literally struck. A bolt of electricity arced from her pau and zapped one mo'o, sending her convulsing to the ground. Pauopololai meanwhile summoned fiddlehead ferns and brambles to entangle the legs of a pair of mo'o that tried to flank them. The snared creatures howled as the thorny plants tightened, yet there were many mo'o, too many to simply pick off one by one leisurely. They began to surround Hiʻiaka, hissing in rage. One climbed a tree and leapt down at her from above, like a dragon dropping onto prey. Hiʻiaka saw the shadow and raised her arm just in time. The mo'o's weight bore her to one knee, but her arm, empowered by Kilauea's strength, held the snapping jaws away from her face. With a grunt she heaved upward, tossing the creature over her head. It crashed into the pool with a splash. Another mo'o raked claws across Hiʻiaka's left shoulder from behind, drawing divine golden ichor. Blood. Hiʻiaka winced at the pain. 3 red slashes marred her skin. In retaliation, she whirled and delivered a blazing punch to that mo'o's chest. The impact, amplified by Pele's strength gift, shattered the lizard woman's rib cage with a boom like a pahu drum. The mo'o wheezed and collapsed, defeated. Still, more kept coming. A smaller mo'o darted in and bit at Hiʻiaka's ankle, teeth sinking in. The goddess staggered momentarily, feeling a rush of venom burn where it bit, but she clenched her jaw and shook it off. Her divine body would resist most toxins. Pauopololai did her best to assist,
using vines to whip at Mo'o faces and shield Hiʻiaka's flanks. She even physically grappled one by entangling it in a mass of ferns that moved like an octopus, squeezing the air from the beast. Amid the chaos, the matriarch Mo'o hung back, chanting in some guttural ancient language. She was preparing a spell of her own. Hiʻiaka noticed the air shimmering near the matriarch. With her foresight, she realized a dangerous enchantment was building. Maybe a blast of dark energy or a paralysis curse. Hiʻiaka knew she must neutralize the matriarch quickly to break the tribe's will. She decided to employ a bit of cunning. There was a legendary power among the Pele family. The ability to call upon fire itself, though her dominion was more about growth. As Pele's sister, she had some command of flame when needed. Focusing her mind, Hiʻiaka invoked Pele's name silently and felt a warmth gather in her palm. She extended her right hand and from her fingertips sprang a jet of flame. It wasn't as intense as Pele's volcanic fire, but it was enough. Hiʻiaka swept her arm, and the flame whooshed across the clearing, scorching a line along the grass straight toward the matriarch Mo'o. The matriarch screeched in surprise, leaping aside to avoid being burned. Her concentration broke, and the half-formed spell she was weaving fizzled into harmless sparks. "You wretched fire witch," she spat at Hiʻiaka. Emboldened, Hiʻiaka advanced through the remaining throng of Mo'o. Most of the lesser ones were now injured or frightened by her ferocity. A few dragged themselves away, whining in pain from lightning or broken bones. 2 remaining tried to bar her way to protect their matriarch, but Hiʻiaka fixed them with a fearsome glare and, summoning a fierce wind, blasted them aside. She had tapped into the local winds of Konakakai that always blew. Now they whipped up under her command. At last, Hiʻiaka and the Mo'o matriarch stood face to face. The matriarch dropped all guise and transformed into her full, monstrous shape. A giant lizard creature the size of a horse, covered in black-green scales, eyes glowing red with malice. She lunged at Hiʻiaka, her massive jaws snapped.
Hiʻiaka did not flinch. In one fluid motion, she sidestepped and jumped onto the creature's back, like a rider mounting a wild beast. The matriarch bucked and writhed, trying to throw her off. But Hiʻiaka wrapped her lightning skirt around the Mo'o's throat like a bridle, and held on tight. The magical skirt burned the Mo'o's scales, causing her to shriek. It was a terrifying ride. The matriarch thrashed and even rammed against a tree trunk to dislodge her attacker. Hiʻiaka's grip slipped slightly, but she dug her knees in and maintained the chokehold with her skirt's fabric, pulling it taut with superhuman strength. The Mo'o gurgled, her forked tongue lolling as the pressure increased. At last, with one mighty heave, Hiʻiaka yanked the skirt with such force that the matriarch's tough scales gave way. The air pipe crushed. The Mo'o collapsed forward with a heavy thud, nearly pinning Hiʻiaka's leg. Hiʻiaka scrambled clear as the massive creature rolled onto its side, wheezing. The matriarch's red eyes dimmed and finally closed as her life force ebbed. She lay still. Seeing their leader defeated, the surviving Mo'o, battered and terrified, fled into the darkest crevices of the valley, yelping. Hiʻiaka, panting and bleeding from a few minor wounds, watched them go but did not pursue. "Go," she shouted after them. "Leave this island and never return. If I find you harming humans again, your fate will be the same or worse." "It's done," sighed the fern goddess, wiping sweat from her brow. She then noticed Hiʻiaka's wounds and quickly plucked some medicinal leaves nearby. She chewed them into a poultice, and gently applied it to Hiʻiaka's shoulder scratches and ankle bite. "This will help draw out the venom and ease pain," she said. Hiʻiaka nodded gratefully, feeling a cooling relief from the natural remedy. Now they searched the cave and waterfall area for any survivors. Unfortunately, many human bones indicated the men had been killed. However, in one corner of the cave, behind a rock, they found 2 emaciated men, alive but weak, bound in tie leaf cords. These must have been the latest victims, not yet consumed or sacrificed by the Mo'o. Hiʻiaka and Paiuapala Alai untied them. The men stared in astonishment at their rescuers, too weak to speak, but eyes shining with gratitude and shock. "Rest easy, you're safe now," Hiʻiaka told them softly. "We'll take you home." Using vine rope as makeshift support, Hiʻiaka and her friend helped the 2 survivors hobble out of the valley. It took a couple of hours to get them down to the village, as they were malnourished and injured, but by afternoon they arrived to a hero's welcome. When the villagers saw the two missing men returning, one an older fisherman and one a youth of 18, a cry went up, half joy, half astonishment. Wives and kin rushed forward, tears streaming, embracing the men and thanking the god. The men, though exhausted, smiled faintly, and managed to say that a goddess saved them. Hiʻiaka humbly stood aside as families reunited. Several women then approached her reverently, bringing fresh water and cloaks to wipe the blood from her arm. An elderly grandmother knelt and offered a bowl of poi and dried fish. Lady Hiʻiaka, you have delivered us from great evil. We have no riches to give, only our eternal aloha and these simple gifts. Your smiles are gift enough, she said warmly. No family should endure what you have. Be at peace now. The Mo'o tribe is vanquished or scattered. Your island will know peace from them. Some chanted prayers of thanks to Hiʻiaka and to Pele as well for sending her. Though time was short, Hiʻiaka took a brief rest under their care, rewrapping her wounds properly and regaining her energy.
By sunset, Hiʻiaka and Pouopala Alai were ready to continue westward. The villagers insisted on escorting them to the next headland with torches to light the way as thanks. When it came time for farewell, the entire village lined the path, offering lei of tea leaves and poapole ferns, sacred to Hiʻiaka, and chanting an old mele that told of a heroic journey, a fitting tribute. Hiʻiaka was touched deeply. With affectionate embraces and smiles, she left Molokaʻi's grateful community behind, marching on with renewed resolve and the blessings of those lives she'd saved. The next trial on Molokaʻi came unexpectedly and tested Hiʻiaka's cleverness. She and Pouopala Alai continued along the rugged north coast of Molokaʻi, aiming to reach Oahu next. The night after leaving the Mo village, they camped briefly. Hiʻiaka allowed herself a short sleep to heal, trusting that Pele would understand, a necessary delay to recover from battle. By dawn they resumed. The island's shape funneled them toward the western end, where the channel to Oahu was narrowest. As midday light dappled through ironwood trees, they came upon a deep gorge splitting the land. There was no easy way around it. The gorge ran inland, and the sea battered cliffs on the coastal side. Looking down into the ravine, they saw a swift river far below, its banks lined with jagged rocks. Crossing seemed impossible, until they noticed something bizarre. Across the chasm lay what appeared to be a narrow bridge, a long slimy log perhaps, or a length of something pale stretching from one side to the other. Hiʻiaka approached cautiously, and touched a foot on the strange bridge. It was slightly spongy, not wood or vine. The surface glistened with moisture. Pouopala Alai suddenly recoiled, a look of realization on her face. Wait! This is not a normal bridge, she exclaimed in a hushed voice. Just then, a gentle voice called from the other side of the gorge. A woman's voice, sweet and melodious. Aloha, travelers, you look uncertain. Don't worry, the bridge is safe to cross. I built it myself just for weary souls like you. Across the gap stood a woman with long hair, the color of midnight, a wreath of tiny flowers on her head. She wore a flowing wrap and had a kind smile. I'm a simple old woman known around here as Kikapoa, she said. Many fear this gorge, but I help folks cross. Come, you can trust me. I'll guide you. Pouopala Alai whispered urgently in Hiʻiaka's ear. That's her, the Mo Kikapoa. I recall now. She is known to trick travelers by forming a bridge with her tongue, then devouring them when they are halfway across. The fern goddess shuddered. Hiʻiaka kept her expression neutral, pretending not to know, but in her heart she steeled herself. This creature was cunning. The bridge spanning the gorge was undoubtedly Kikapoa's extended tongue, disguised as a cross. If they stepped out far enough, she would likely flick them into the depths or snatch them into her jaws. Feigning innocence, Hiʻiaka raised her voice to the woman. Mahalo, auntie, for your kindness. It's rare to find help in these wild parts. We are so relieved to see you. She subtly winked at Pouopala Alai to indicate she had a plan. Kikapoa beamed and gestured. Please, go ahead. Start crossing.
I'll ensure it stays steady. Indeed, the log gave a little undulation, as if to form a shallow bow like a stable footpath. Hiʻiaka made a show of gingerly stepping onto it. One foot, then the other. It was wet, and a bit sticky. Her senses screamed caution, but she played her role. Pa'upala'alai followed behind, quivering but trusting Hiʻiaka's lead. They advanced slowly. Kikipua waited on the far side, seeming helpful, but her eyes betrayed a hungry gleam. When Hiʻiaka reached about the middle of the span, she felt a slight tremor run through it. The tongue was flexing, preparing a maneuver. In that split second, her foresight told her the creature was about to snap her tongue, like a whip, or curl it to dump them off. Now, Hiʻiaka shouted. She jumped, and at the same time, yanked at her pau skirt. The lightning within it answered. In a flash, Hiʻiaka drew a small lightning dagger from the fabric, a blade of pure crackling energy, and slashed downward hard. She sliced clean through the bridge just ahead of her feet. A hideous wet screech tore through the air, as the severed part of the tongue recoiled, spraying greenish ichor. On the far side, the beautiful woman's gaze fell away, revealing a monstrous momo head, with a stump of a tongue, spurting blood. Kikipua howled in agony and rage, retreating. With the tongue bridge cut, Hiʻiaka and Pa'upala'alai were briefly left mid-air, above the gorge. But Hiʻiaka was ready, channeling the lightning of her skirt beneath them. She created a crackling platform of energy, just for a moment, to spring off. It was as if she had formed a temporary stepping stone of thundercloud. She seized Pa'upala'alai around the waist, and leapt with all her might forward. The two women sailed across the remaining gap and landed on the opposite side solid ground, tumbling but safe. Kikipua was thrashing nearby, her lizard form now fully apparent, a lanky green momo, with a truncated tongue and gaping jaws. She fixed one enraged eye on Hiʻiaka and hissed something unintelligible, perhaps a curse. But grievously wounded, Kikipua had no fight left. She slithered away into the underbrush, moaning in pain, and disappeared down a hole beneath a rock. There was a strong smell of blood and burnt flesh lingering. She would not likely emerge again to bother anyone soon, not without her chief weapon. Panting, Pa'upala'alai got to her feet. That was, she broke into a grin. Brilliant. You literally cut her tongue off. Hiʻiaka flicked the residual slime from her lightning blade, which then dissipated back into her skirt. She deserved no less. The number of bones down in that gorge. I suspect she's claimed many lives over the years. Hiʻiaka made a quick prayer that those souls find rest now. They quickly moved on from that grisly sight, continuing west with renewed pace. Behind them a faint whimper echoed from the gorge. Kikipua's lament, or just the wind. Either way, the Bridge of Tongues would trouble travelers no more. With Moloka'i's challenges conquered, and nearing its westernmost point, Hiʻiaka could practically taste Oahu's nearness. Sure enough, by that evening, they reached Makalai, the westernmost tip of Molokai, where the expanse of the Kauai Channel lay between them and Oahu. As the sun set in a blaze of orange over the sea, Hiʻiaka gazed at the silhouette of Oahu across the water. It was larger and greener than Molokai, with mountain ranges faintly outlined under pink clouds. There, new adventures and temptations might await, including, she knew, an encounter with Lohiau's past perhaps. She recalled that Pele mentioned Lohiau should not go with any male messenger, only a female. Could it be that someone else might have tried to bring him, or that others desired him? Stories of Lohiau's charms suggested he had admirers beyond Pele. Regardless, Hiʻiaka's goal was in sight. One more island, Oahu, to cross. Then the final leg to Kauai. She took a deep breath of the salt air. Time to secure passage across this channel. At that rocky point stood the famous Rock of Kauai, a huge stone said to have been placed there by the demigod Maui ages ago when fishing up islands. It was also said that if one chanted to this rock with respect, it could summon aid for the journey to Kauai, or presumably from Oahu to Kauai. But first they needed to get to Oahu itself across maybe 25 miles of open ocean. Hiʻiaka climbed atop the rock of Kauai as twilight fell. She raised her arms and voice in an oli to the ancestral spirits of the ocean and the rock. E pohaku a Kauai, Ialea, oa hiki maui a kokapa, I kono aku I kalawena, I kiai mai ka moku I kia holo I ka paiaina, I Hawaii nui ala mai ka moku. O rock of Kauai, arise. We have come to your shore, we ask for passage. Watch over a small vessel to sail to the next island. O great Hawaii, awaken the next island. The winds fell still as her chant echoed. For a moment, nothing happened. But then the sea near the rock began to churn gently, forming a spiral. From beneath the foam, a large canoe-shaped object emerged. It was as if the rock extended a piece of itself into the water out of nowhere. A sturdy canoe was bobbing by the rocky ledge, big enough for two, seemingly carved of stone yet floating. Hiʻiaka bowed her head in thanks. The rock of Kauai had answered. She and Pele carefully boarded the uncanny canoe. The moment they settled, a favorable wind picked up from behind, filling an invisible sail. The stone canoe moved by an unseen force, gliding out to sea, carrying them across the Kauai Channel toward Oahu's shore. Stars blossomed overhead, as night fully took hold, and the moon rose to guide them. Hiʻiaka allowed herself a moment of calm as the magical vessel skimmed the waves. She was exhausted yet filled with purpose. Oahu lay ahead, likely another day's journey across its breadth, and then Kauai, Lohiau, and the true test of her promise and Pele's patience. She had endured so much to reach him, yet she hadn't met him yet. Who was this man who had inspired such devotion from Pele and indirectly from Hiʻiaka? Through her loyalty, would he be grateful or cooperative when found? There was a stirring within her, curiosity, perhaps even a premonition of the connection they might share. She quickly pushed that thought down, reminding herself of her vow. Yet, in the gentle rocking of the boat, under a sky of infinite stars, a subtle feeling bloomed in her heart. Destiny awaited on Kauai, and it felt as though it was not only Pele's destiny that hung in the balance, but her own as well. The island of Oahu grew larger in the dark, its mountains forming black shapes against the starlit sky. Hiʻiaka closed her eyes for a brief rest, trusting the rock of Kauai's enchantment to carry them safely. Molten tropical doom might await at the end of this journey, but for now, in the quiet between trials, she let the ocean's lullaby soothe her weary spirit, gathering strength for the trials yet to come. At dawn, the stone canoe nudged gently onto the shores of Oahu, dissolving back into ordinary rock once Hiʻiaka and Pele disembarked. They found themselves on a secluded east side beach of Oahu, near Makapuʻu Point, where black rocks and tide pools greeted the sunrise. Makapuʻu was known to be home to ancient guardian spirits. In particular, two revered stones named Makapuʻu and Mele, said to be embodiments of deities or ancestors protecting the island. Remembering the courtesies due, Hiʻiaka approached the large sea-sprayed stones that stood like sentinels by the point. She chanted an olikahea entry chant to greet and honor them. Aloha mai na kia Oahu, e Makapuʻu e Mele iai, mai ya mawa ya hale, ma ko kahakai, e malama kia ai. A warm breeze suddenly stirred, ruffling Hiʻiaka's hair, a sign of acknowledgement. The guardian stones glistened in the morning light, and Hiʻiaka felt a subtle energy of welcome, rather than resistance. With their blessing, she and her companion proceeded. They skirted around the windward coast, with Oahu's verdant cliffs on one side, and the sparkling Pacific on the other. The journey across this island would not be as long as on Hawaii. Still, events awaited them here as by midday they reached the area of Kualoa, at the northeastern side. This place was sacred and storied, lush valleys open to the sea, and a distinctive small island sat offshore, Makole, also known as Chenaman's hat for its shape. According to legend, Makole was the tale of a great Mo dragon that had been slain by some hero in ages past. As they walked the sandy shoreline at Kualoa, Pele suddenly pointed out toward the water. Look, that island. Its shape. It resembles a Mo's head or tail. Hiʻiaka nodded. Yes, Makole. Some say a mo met its end here. She felt something tug at her senses. A lingering malevolent presence. Could it be that there was still an evil spirit around? Perhaps an unvanquished piece of that old creature, or a new one taking residence. Her intuition proved true. As they passed near a cluster of boulders, the ground trembled subtly. From behind the rocks burst forth a huge mo, dark-scaled and warty, one that had avoided notice until they were within its trap. It roared, and lunged straight for Hiʻiaka, jaws open. Apparently one fragment of that dragon legend remained alive. Maybe the head without its tail or some kin seeking revenge. With barely a battle cry, she sidestepped the monster's rush and landed a devastating blow with her empowered fist to the side of its skull. A loud crack sounded. The mo's jaw dislocated with the force. The creature reeled, and before it could recover, Hiʻiaka summoned an extra surge of Pele's power. She delivered a second, two-handed smash atop the mo's head.
The rocky beach shook as the creature's skull caved in. It collapsed half in the water, twitching once before lying still, blood pooling into the surf. The ocean waves eagerly began to carry the heavy carcass out. Within minutes, fish and crabs would ensure little remained. Pouopolalai stared at the swift demise of that beast. "You truly take after Pele when angered," she murmured in respect and slight awe. Hiʻiaka exhaled slowly, calming herself. "These beings have wrought too much harm. I regret only that violence is necessary." But she also felt relief. Each monster defeated meant a safer path for future travelers and asserted her dedication to see this quest through. They cleaned up and moved on, leaving Mokole's memory to the bards. As afternoon arrived, Hiʻiaka and Pouopolalai came to the populous southern plains of Oahu. In contrast to the wild regions they traversed, here were villages and low taro fields, and people going about daily life. News of Hiʻiaka's journey had perhaps preceded her, because some folks looked up in recognition and offered food or drink as they passed. Hiʻiaka kindly accepted small items, a piece of ripe mango here, a cup of cool water there, but did not linger long. She did inquire if a Chiefess Peleua lived nearby, recalling the NPS account or the Folklore Thursday piece about an old flame of Lohiau on Oahu. Indeed, villagers told her that in Honolulu, a chiefess named Peleua was renowned for her beauty and hospitality. She had once been lover to a chief from Kauai. This sounded like Lohiau's past, aligning too well to ignore. It happened that to reach the canoe for Kauai, Hiʻiaka would likely pass near Honolulu, which in ancient times was a chiefly stronghold in the area of Ko, near present downtown. Sure enough, that evening they approached a compound with torches lit and the sound of music and chatter, a gathering at the residence of the High Chiefess Peleua. As they entered the courtyard, they saw a regal woman about Hiʻiaka's age, though mortal, seated on fine mat. Peleua had a graceful neck encircled with a necklace of whale ivory and wore a mantle of golden feathers. Servants and lesser chiefs were feasting and playing a game in front of her. A game of kelu involved sliding or bowling a small disc or short cylinder, often a carved piece of wood or gourd across the mat to hit a target. It was both a sport and a flirtation game. Winners could claim kisses or favors from an opposite player. Hiʻiaka's arrival did not go unnoticed. Peleua's eyes gleamed with polite curiosity. She greeted them graciously. "Welcome, travelers. By your bearing I see you are of high rank. May I ask who honors my home this evening?" "I am Hiʻiaka Kapoleo Pele." Hiʻiaka introduced herself, sister of Pele of Hawaii. "This is my companion. We travel on a royal errand." A ripple of whispers passed among the gathered crowd. The name of Pele carried weight. Peleua herself raised her brows in surprise. "Indeed, then you honor us doubly by stopping here. Come share in our Haʻiana feast tonight." Hiʻiaka and Pouopolalai were invited to sit. Fresh leis of hala fruit and puakenikini flowers were draped on them, and attendants brought food: roast pig, yam, and coconut pudding. While eating, Hiʻiaka conversed politely, gleaning that Peleua was once betrothed to a chief from Kauai, but he disappeared, or returned home abruptly years ago. Hiʻiaka instantly thought, this must be Lohiau's former lover,
The old lover in Honolulu. Perhaps Lohiau courted her before meeting Pele, or maybe during one of his travels, as he was known to travel among islands. If so, Pelelula might still harbor feelings or at least interest. And now here was Hiʻiaka, Pele's sister, presumably on her way to fetch Lohiau. It was a delicate situation. After dinner, Pelelula proposed entertainment. We were just in the midst of a Kilu tournament. Perhaps our esteemed guest Hiʻiaka would do us the favor of participating. It is a light-hearted game, she smiled. Hiʻiaka could sense something underlying the invitation. She had glimpsed a handsome young man in Pelelula's retinue, who resembled Kauai features. Perhaps Lohiau's cousin or friend Paua, or maybe just her current husband. But Pelelula's gaze at Hiʻiaka was more appraising, even mischievous. Possibly she wanted to test Hiʻiaka's skills, or had some plan, not one to shy from a challenge. Hiʻiaka agreed. They divided into two sides. Interestingly, Pelelula arranged herself opposite Hiʻiaka as opponents for a round. A servant placed a small wooden kilu disc into Hiʻiaka's hand. The rules: slide the kilu along the mat to strike a narrow stick or target near your opponent. If you hit, you win a favor or prize. Before they began, Pelelula announced with a coy tone, "Shall we make it interesting? If I win, dear Hiʻiaka must grant me a boon of my choosing. If Hiʻiaka wins, I shall grant her whatever reasonable boon she asks of me." The courtiers tittered. Wagers always spiced these games. Hiʻiaka realized this chiefess might be fishing for information about Lohiau, or a chance to see him again. Likely her boon would involve Lohiau in some way. Best not to lose then. And if she won, maybe she could ensure a smooth departure. Agreed, said Hiʻiaka, her competitive spirit kindling. She focused on the target stick by Pelelula, gauging distance. Pelelula went first. With a graceful flick of her wrist, she sent the kilu sliding across the mat. It glided true and clink, struck the stick on Hiʻiaka's side dead on. Applause rose. Pelelula clapped lightly, smiling. A hit, it seems luck is with me. Hiʻiaka nodded, unfazed. Now she breathed in, feeling the weight of the kilu piece. Though not experienced in this exact game, her reflexes and divine precision were honed by battle and dance. She lowered herself, one knee on the mat, and in a fluid motion, launched the kilu forward. It zipped straight and knocked over Pelelula's stick sharply. The crowd cheered louder, delighted by the even match. One hit each. The game continued, best of several tosses. They alternated throws, each displaying uncanny accuracy. Pelelula clearly was skilled, and even possibly used a subtle chant under her breath for aid. But Hiʻiaka had the advantage of supernatural agility and focus. A hush fell. The chiefess had faltered. Hiʻiaka seized the moment. She murmured a quick dedication to Laka, goddess of hula and games, and slid her kilu with measured force. It sped across like a shooting star and struck the stick, sending it spinning away. Hiʻiaka had won the match. The spectators erupted in applause and chants of praise. Pelelula, ever the dignified hostess, took the loss in stride, though her eyes were thoughtful. She stood and beckoned Hiʻiaka to stand too. Taking a lei from her own neck, Pelelula placed it on Hiʻiaka, a sign of honoring the victor. "Well played, Hiʻiaka. It seems fortune favors you," she said graciously. "You shall have the boon I'd promised. What is your wish of me?"
Hiʻiaka kept it simple. "Only that we may depart your lovely court unmolested, and with your blessing at first light, and perhaps a fine canoe to speed our way to Kauai." Pelelula was mildly surprised. She likely expected something about Lohiau. Perhaps Hiʻiaka purposely avoided mention of him to not stir drama. The chiefess smiled and nodded. "Easily granted. I will provide a swift canoe from my own fleet and crew it with my best paddlers to take you to Kauai safely. And of course you depart with my blessing and aloha." With that, any potential friction resolved. Pelelula seemed to accept that Lohiau, if indeed that's where they headed, was now Pele's claim, and an extension Hiʻiaka's duty. Perhaps her competitive test was simply to satisfy her curiosity or pride.
Having lost gracefully, she bore no ill will. That night Hiʻiaka slept in comfortable quarters provided. Though her dreams were anxious, she dreamt of smoke and coals, of forests burning and Hopo calling out to her. She awoke in a cold sweat well before dawn, heart pounding, a dreadful premonition. She whispered to herself, "Hold on, Hopo, I'm almost home." They hastened to the shore with early light. True to her word, Pele gifted them a sleek, double-hulled canoe with a crew of 4 strong paddlers. The chiefess herself came to see them off, draping a red and yellow royal cloak around Hiʻiaka's shoulders as a parting honor. "May the winds carry you swiftly, and may you find what you seek on Kauai," she said. She wondered if she should mention Lohiau to the chiefess. Maybe some closure. On impulse, as the canoe pushed out, Hiʻiaka called, "Pele, the one you once loved, Lohiau, lives, and I go to bring him to my sister. He will pass this way soon, I think. Perhaps you shall see him once more, in happier times." It was a kind lie or perhaps prophecy. She wasn't sure. Pele smiled wistfully and waved. The sun broke over the Koala Mountains as the canoe cut through the wave. Hiʻiaka and Paueau Palai sat at the prow, wind in their hair, as the skilled paddlers rowed in unison chanting a paddling melody. Now it was the final stretch, the Kaiakiuau Channel, between Oahu and Kauai, notoriously wide and rough. But Pelewila's crew was excellent, and Hiʻiaka's presence seemed to steady the elements. For 2 days they traveled. The channel is long, stopping one night at the small island of Niuha to rest. Finally, as the 20th day, by Hiʻiaka's count, dawned since she left Kilauea, they sighted the lush cliffs of Kauai, rising emerald green from the sea. Now came the most critical part, finding Lohiau, reviving him if needed, and returning swiftly. Unbeknownst to her at that moment, the 40-day limit Pele set was dangerously close. In fact, with all the delays, the journey had stretched towards that mark, and events were already unfolding back at Kilauea, due to her tardiness. But on that bright morning, as the canoe sailed around Kauai's northeastern coast to approach Hāina, Hiʻiaka was focused on the task at hand, and brimming with hope. She would soon meet Lohiau, the man at the center of this storm of love and jealousy. Her spirit guides hinted at Sara to come, but she steadied herself. First, bring Lohiau back to life, she thought, then worry about Pele's reaction. The canoe landed on a golden beach at Hāina, Lohiau's home. Tall coconut trees leaned over the sand and beyond. Taro fields stretched toward forested mountains, but an unnatural silence hung about the place. No bustling villagers greeted the incoming canoe. Instead, a few figures lingered listlessly. It was as if a heavy grief weighed down the whole area. Hiʻiaka stepped ashore and a young man approached cautiously, armed with the spear but not hostile, more desolate. "Who are you? Why have you come?" he asked dully. "I am Hiʻiaka, from Hawaii, come seeking Chief Lohiau," she answered gently. "I come with news and purpose from Pele." At the mention of Lohiau, the young man's face crumpled and he began to sob openly. "You are too late," he managed. "Lohiau, our beloved Alei, he died days ago." Though she knew it likely, hearing it confirmed still struck Hiʻiaka's heart like a spear. "Take me to him," she urged. The young man, who introduced himself as Paua, Lohiau's closest friend and Aikani intimate companion, led Hiʻiaka inland to a sheltered grove near a heiau temple by a cliff. Along the way, Palaolai and the paddlers stayed with the canoe, giving Hiʻiaka space for her solemn task. Paua explained haltingly. After Pele left him, Lohiau was distraught. He fell ill with longing. "We tried every remedy, every prayer, but his life slipped away. On the 7th day after Pele's departure he passed." They arrived at a cave entrance, sealed with stones. "We laid him in the family tomb here." Several of Lohiau's kin, his sister, some kahuna, priests, stood vigil outside the tomb, looking wan and mournful. When they saw a strange woman of regal aura approach, they were perplexed. Paua quickly announced, "This is Hiʻiaka, sister of Pele. She says she comes to find Lohiau. Lohiau's sister, a dignified woman named Kale, despite her reddened eyes, gave a respectful though sad greeting. Hiʻiaka, your coming heralds the greatness of Pele's love for my brother, but alas, we have lost. Even now, his body lies cold within. Hiʻiaka put a reassuring hand on Kale's shoulder. Take heart, Pele sent me to bring Lohiau to her. She did not foresee death as an obstacle. I have the power to return his spirit to his body if you trust me. The group was astonished. A low murmur went through them. Can this be done? One kahuna whispered. Others were skeptical but desperate for hope. Without further delay, Hiʻiaka directed that the stones sealing the tomb be removed. Men carefully pulled aside the slab. Within, a faint fragrance of funerary herbs wafted out. In the dim light, on a stone bier draped with fine kapa cloth, lay Lohiau's body. Hiʻiaka's breath caught. Even in death, Lohiau was strikingly handsome, tall and strong, with noble features and hair neatly tied in a top knot. His skin, once bronzed with life, was now ashen, yet he looked serene, as if sleeping. He was wrapped in cloaks of pandanus and feather, and garlands of dried flowers lay around him. The sight moved Hiʻiaka deeply. She felt tears prick her eyes for this man she'd never known in life. Perhaps it was the weight of Pele's love transferring to her empathy, or something in her own heart awakening at his visit.
She steeled herself. Everyone, step back and keep silence while I work. I must chant his spirit back from the realm of Malu, the underworld. Do not interfere no matter what you see or hear. The family nodded and retreated a respectful distance. In the cave, Hiʻiaka knelt by Lohiau's head. She gently brushed cold strands of hair from his brow. Pauapalalai hovered at the cave entrance. Silent support. Hiʻiaka closed her eyes, centering herself. She began a low chant, voice resonant and hypnotic, calling to Lohiau's Anai soul. Elohiau e, hoi mai. Ikeau, Kikaheaku neo malalo o kahonua, Enailo oluia milu, Ehoi mai, Oa kapaia ke Lohiau Pele, Ehoi, O Lohiau return to the world of light. I call out beneath the earth. Escape from Milu's embrace. Return, summoned by Pele's love. Come back to your body, arise. She repeated verses in Hawaiian, voice rising then falling, rhythmic as waves. With each cycle she reached deeper into the spirit realm. Her own spirit slipped partially free of her body, venturing into a dim space of shadows and whispering souls. In this trance she sought Lohiau's ghost. At first there was nothing, then a flicker. She saw him, Lohiau's spirit adrift in a grey twilight world, walking aimlessly as if lost in a fog. He was turned away, moving farther from the living realm. Hiʻiaka intensified her chant, pouring her mana spiritual power into it. She envisioned tendrils of light extending from her heart to wrap around Lohiau's ghostly form. Elohiau epo, she called within the chant, daring to use a term of endearment as Pele would. Beloved Lohiau, hear my voice. Follow it home. In the other world, Lohiau's shade paused. He recognized something, perhaps Pele's aura within Hiʻiaka, or just the insistence of life. The spirit turned slightly toward her light tendrils. Encouraged, Hiʻiaka chanted louder, her voice carrying both in the cave and beyond the veil. Hiʻiaka wahine, ekalona o kilauea, kei mai neo wau, ehoi mai ke Lohiau, mai kapolia ke malamalama. Hiʻiaka makano keola. Eloe mai. Here is your woman from the heights of Kilauea. She cries. Alas, return, O love, from the darkness into the bright light. Here is the gift of life. Take it and return. She sensed Lohiau's confusion. His spirit still lingered out of longing for Pele, not fully ready to depart, but unable to live. This was the leverage. At length the ghost turned fully towards her voice and light. As if caught in a gentle current, Lohiau's spirit began to drift back the way it came, towards the boundary of life, following Hiʻiaka's coaxing song. Outside the trance, observers saw Hiʻiaka's face glistening with sweat.
her voice echoing powerfully now. Wind had picked up around the tomb, swirling leaves despite the still day, a sign of spirits moving. Suddenly Lohiau's body trembled. Kaili gasped, but she remembered not to interfere. Hiʻiaka laid a hand on Lohiau's cold chest and felt a faint stirring. She pressed both hands there and delivered the final, commanding lines of the chant. Ehinau hoe la hoe, ikea la ya, haina ya kapuana, hoe mai keola. At that moment, Lohiau's eyes flew open with a sharp intake of breath. A raspy sudden gasp of air filling lungs long still. His chest rose under Hiʻiaka's palms. Color rushed back into his cheeks as blood began pumping anew. He coughed, choking slightly on breath, and Hiʻiaka turned him gently on his side to let him clear his throat. The gathered family broke into cries of astonishment and joy. "He's breathing! He's alive!" Pa'a fell to his knees in gratitude, laughing and sobbing at once. Kaili and others reached forward but held back, letting Hiʻiaka complete her work. Lohiau blinked in confusion, vision focusing. The first thing he saw was a beautiful unfamiliar woman kneeling over him, supporting his shoulders. Her eyes were kind and filled with tears. "Am I alive?" "Who are you?" he whispered, voice weak. Hiʻiaka smiled, radiant as the sun after a storm. "Yes, Chief Lohiau, you have returned. I am Hiʻiaka, younger sister of Pele. She sent me to bring you to her, and I have finally found you." At the mention of Pele, memory flooded Lohiau's eyes. "Pele. Yes, I remember now. She left. I died. I felt so cold and lost." He shuddered, recalling the void of death. Hiʻiaka steadied him, brushing his arm reassuringly. "You did. But that is past. You live again by Pele's love and the god's grace, and by my humble efforts," she added softly. Lohiau struggled to sit up, and Kaili and Pa'a rushed in to assist now, unable to contain themselves. "Brother," Kaili cried, embracing him gently. "We thought you gone forever." Pa'a clasped Lohiau's hand, tears streaming down his face, unable to speak. The tomb became a scene of tearful celebration. Hiʻiaka stood and quietly stepped aside to give them a moment, wiping her own brow. Paiua Pala'alai handed her a cloth and some water to drink. Hiʻiaka was drained. Such soul work took tremendous energy, but profoundly relieved and happy. Within minutes, the whole village of Hawaiian knew Lohiau had been resurrected. People gathered to see their chief alive, walking with help from his tomb. Many looked upon Hiʻiaka with reverence and fear, recognizing that only a divine power could perform such a miracle. By midday, Lohiau was resting on a comfortable mat in his hill, regaining strength slowly by sipping broth. Hiʻiaka stayed close, as did Pa'a and Kai. Lohiau's eyes followed Hiʻiaka often, curiosity and gratitude evident. Finally, when they had a quiet moment, he said, "I owe you my life, Lady Hiʻiaka. More than that, I feel as if I owe you my soul, for you fetched it from darkness. I am in your debt." Hiʻiaka shook her head gently. "You owe me nothing but to recover and fulfill your destiny. I did what I was sent to do, return you to life, and bring you to my sister." At this, Lohiau's expression clouded. "Pele, yet, my heart yearns for her still, though I confess, in that shadowland I felt betrayed. She left me abruptly, and I could not bear it." He looked away, ashamed of his weakness. A jolt like a spark passed between them, and she quickly withdrew, both feeling it. "She regretted having to leave you. That's why she moved heaven and earth, and me, to get you back," Hiʻiaka said. Lohiau nodded slowly, examining Hiʻiaka with interest. "You are very different from your sister in manner. Gentle, where she is fierce. But I see a familial strength. How long was I gone?" They told him it had been roughly 2 weeks since he died. In reality, more like 3 given travel time. His eyes wide. "Then Pele. She is waiting. We must go to her soon, I think. I cannot imagine her patience." He attempted a wry smile. Hiʻiaka concurred with an inward pang. Yes, they had to hurry now. With revival done, the deadline loomed. "As soon as you are well enough to travel, we should depart. We have a canoe and crew waiting, courtesy of Ahu's chiefess, but I'll allow you at least a day to get your strength." Lohiau took her hand impulsively, sincerity in his gaze. "Thank you. You've done so much." Perhaps one day I can repay it. Their eyes met for a breath longer than intended. Hiʻiaka felt a warmth rising in her cheeks, and quickly pulled her hand free, pretending to adjust his blanket. She must keep her heart guarded. This was Pele's lover, and yet, something in his voice and the way he looked at her sparked feelings she hadn't expected. Throughout that day, word spread across Kauai of Lohiau's miraculous resurrection, and Pele's sister being present. Offerings and well-wishes poured in. That night, the village celebrated with quiet joy out of respect, not making too rowdy a feast, as Lohiau was still recuperating. Lohiau regained enough vigor to walk a bit and greet his people, assuring them he felt held by Pele's blessing. Hiʻiaka remained at his side often, both as protector and nurse. They spoke of the journey ahead, crossing the ocean to Hawaii. Lohiau was ready and even eager to see Pele, though with some trepidation. "Will she be angry I tarried in death?" he joked lightly. Hiʻiaka answered earnestly, "Angry with you? No, perhaps with me if I am late. We must truly leave at first light tomorrow. I fear the 40 days are nearly done." In fact, by her calculation, tomorrow was the 40th day since she left. In the back of her mind, worry gnawed. Would Pele know they revived him? Did she think Hiʻiaka broke her vow? Hiʻiaka had kept it so far. She had not embraced or loved Lohiau beyond what duty required. But she couldn't shake a feeling of dread, as if Pele's impatience might have already ignited. Meanwhile in Hawaii, things had indeed taken a dark turn, as the 40th day arrived with no sign of Hiʻiaka or Lohiau.
Back at Kilauea, Pele had grown increasingly anxious as days passed, with no word from Hiʻiaka. By the 30th day, her initial confidence turned to worry and seeds of suspicion. Her elder sister Kapo and some other siblings tried to soothe her. Voyages take time, they said. There were many islands to cross. But as day 35, 36, 37 came and went, Pele's fear twisted into jealous imagining. Why was Hiʻiaka not back? Had Lohiau and she... Pele tried to banish the thought, but her temper flared uncontrollably at times. The volcano reflected her mood. Thunderous rumbles, vents spouting steam erratically. On day 40's dawn, which now coincided with Hiʻiaka in Kauai planning departure, Pele awoke from a troubled sleep. She had dreamt of Hiʻiaka and Lohiau laughing together under Kauai's moon, arms around each other. True or not, the dream incensed her. She paced the crater rim like a caged tigress. "She has betrayed me," Pele finally exclaimed to her gathered sibling. 40 days and not a single one has she kept her promise to return with him. Her brother Kiawa tried to calm her. "We don't know that, Pele. Perhaps misfortune or need for rest delayed them." "Silence," Pele roared. "No mortal misfortune could stop my sister unless her heart has strayed. She has taken too long, likely enamored by that handsome chief herself." Pele's eyes blazed. Her long-suppressed rage erupted. "I will not be made a fool of," she cried. In her rage she forgot her promise to Hiʻiaka, the promise not to harm Hopo or the forests. All she saw was betrayal and a need for vengeance. Pele thrust her arms upward and summoned her deepest powers. The sky darkened over Kilauea even though it was morning. The ground trembled. Down the slopes toward Puna, the earth cracked open as Pele unleashed a fountain of lava. An incandescent river of molten rock surged forth, aiming for Hiʻiaka's beloved Lohiau Grove. Meanwhile Hopo, who had been faithfully dancing each day on Puna's beach, awaiting her friend's return, felt the earth shake. She paused her morning hula looking toward the mountain. Black smoke billowed from Kilauea's direction. Villagers shouted and began to flee inland for safety. But from the volcano a fiery flood was racing directly toward Hopo's grove by the sea. Realizing the danger, Hopo's eyes widened in terror. She tried to run, but the lava moved with supernatural speed. Pele was guiding it with wrathful precision. In minutes the front of the flow reached the edge of the Lohiau forest. Flames erupted as trees caught fire. Hopo stood on the shore, trapped between the approaching wall of fire and the ocean. But her pleas were unheard over the roar of burning forest and sizzling rock. Hopo's last sight was a wave of lava surging toward her like an ocean of fire.
In a final act of grace, she assumed her dance pose, arms curved, hips mid-sway defiantly facing her doom. The lava engulfed Hopo. For an instant her form was outlined in glowing orange, then hardened to black. When the lava cooled, a statue of stone remained where the girl had stood. The dancing stone of Puna, Hopo immortalized in her final hula. The sea rushed against it, making the rock sway slightly with the tide as if continuing her dance in death. At that same moment, far away on Kauai's shore, Hiʻiaka felt the stabbing pain in her chest, and nearly fell as she was boarding the canoe with Lohiau. She didn't know why, but her soul shuddered. Something terrible had happened to Hopo. She could feel it. She looked to the horizon and saw an ominous red glow from the direction of Hawaii, though faint at such distance. Her worst fears bubbled up. Pele had lost control. In a panic, Hiʻiaka urged everyone, "Row, row now. We must hurry. All is not well at home." The paddlers, seeing her urgency, dug deep and the canoe flew over the waves toward Hawaii. Back on Hawaii, Pele's fury was still unsated. Not content with destroying the forest and Hopo, her attention turned to punishing Lohiau and Hiʻiaka themselves, wherever they might be. She was blind with rage. Assuming them together romantically, she commanded her younger sisters, those who were still around her, to go forth and find Hiʻiaka and Lohiau, to kill the man for his presumed part in this betrayal. Some of these sisters, who loved Hiʻiaka and also had reservations, balked. "We are not warriors, sister, and we will not kill without cause," they murmured fearfully. Her brothers too refused to harm Lohiau. "He did nothing, and he is our guest to be," said one. Their refusal only inflamed Pele more. "Fine, if none of you will do my bidding, I'll do it myself," she screamed. At Kilaueao's rim, there was a sacred bluff called Kalu Wahine, the woman's pit, or kahawai, where offerings were made. Pele strode there. She peered with supernatural sight across the sea. In her mind's eye she could suddenly see, perhaps through some scrying flame, the canoe bearing Hiʻiaka and Lohiau, not far from the Big Island's coast. They would land by evening, in Puna, if unimpeded. Seeing them together in the canoe, though they sat properly apart, confirmed her jealous imaginings. To Pele, it looked like they were side by side, chatting intimately. Her heart twisted. She broke her vow, embraced him, stole him. Pele resolved that Lohiau must die for this insult, and if Hiʻiaka loved him now, that would hurt her too. A terrible punishment, in Pele's mind, for a terrible treachery. She summoned forth waves of lava and fiery projectiles. As Hiʻiaka's canoe came within sight of Hawaii's shore that evening, the travelers beheld an apocalyptic scene. Puna's coastline glowed with fire, and lava was actively pouring into the sea, sending up billows of steam. "No, no, no," Hiʻiaka whispered, tears in her eyes, guessing immediately that her grove and Hopo were gone. Lohiau put a comforting arm around her shoulders instinctively, a natural human gesture, which under any other circumstance might have been innocent, but to Pele watching from afar, it was the ultimate confirmation of betrayal. The moment the canoe touched land at Puna's blackened shore, Hiʻiaka leapt out, not even caring that lava was cooling underfoot. She looked around at the devastation, charred stumps where her beloved forest stood, ash covering the ground like snow, and by the beach, the stone figure of Hopo still standing in hula pose, half submerged by steaming seawater. A wail of grief and rage erupted from Hiʻiaka's throat. She ran to the stone, touching it, its surface still warm. She recognized her friend's form and what had happened. "Hopo!" she cried, voice cracking. There was no response from cold stone. It was in that moment, seeing her dearest friend murdered by her own sister's hand, that something broke in Hiʻiaka. All the loyalty, all the patience she'd had for Pele's mood snapped like a dry twig. Her eyes narrowed, tears drying in the heat of her rising anger. If Pele thought she'd betrayed her, If Pele had done this despite Hiʻiaka's true faithfulness, then Pele would get a betrayal served. Lohiau and the rest had disembarked and now approached warily. Lohiau was stunned by the ravaged landscape and the absolute despair on Hiʻiaka's face. Who caused this, he asked, though he guessed the answer. Pele, Hiʻiaka spat, with a mix of sorrow and fury. She has broken her promise. She killed Hopo, my cherished friend, in jealous rage, and she burned my forest. All for a crime I did not commit. Hiʻiaka trembled, fists clenched. Lohiau, trying to process, said softly, "We should go to her, explain." But Hiʻiaka was beyond reasoning now. Her grief transmuted into a terrible resolve. If Pele wanted a reason to be jealous, Hiʻiaka would give her one. She would do the very thing Pele accused her of. Though in truth her burgeoning feelings for Lohiau were still confused, now it hardly mattered. Hiʻiaka strode over to Lohiau and, before he or anyone could react, she seized him by the arm, pulled him close and pressed her lips to his in a fierce, passionate kiss. Lohiau was startled, but he did not resist. In that powerful moment, with the world burning around them, he returned the kiss. Perhaps he felt deep gratitude and admiration for Hiʻiaka saving him and was moved by her suffering. Perhaps a budding love had also grown in him on the journey, or perhaps in shock he simply reacted. But for a long heartbeat the two shared a blazing kiss among the ashes. Hiʻiaka's first act of defiance fully realized. Pele, watching from Keleoa, saw this clearly. Hiʻiaka embracing Lohiau, kissing him passionately by Hopo's stone. A scream of outrage erupted from the volcano that shook the island. It's true, she has taken him as her lover. In truth, it became so in that instant. What had been unspoken potential between Hiʻiaka and Lohiau was sealed with that kiss. A point of no return. Pele's fury was absolute. With a howl she hurled a torrent of lava and fire down towards that very spot. "Hiʻiaka, look out." Paua, who had come along to help, one of the paddlers from Kauai actually being him, shouted as he saw a glow in the distance rushing close. Hiʻiaka broke off the kiss and immediately pushed Lohiau behind her. She knew what was coming. This was death from the mountain. The ground fissured open yards away and an explosion of lava bombs rained down. The others scattered, but Pele's fire flowed straight at Lohiau and Hiʻiaka. Hiʻiaka stood firm, mustering her divine protections. She flung her lightning skirt around herself, and Lohiau like a shield. Flaming rocks pelted them, bouncing off the magical pile. The heat was immense, but Hiʻiaka endured it unharmed. Mortal Lohiau flinched as scorching air hit. Yet he was not burned under Hiʻiaka's protection. Seeing her lava, initially thwarted by Hiʻiaka's defense, only enraged Pele more. She caused the very cliffside above them to collapse, a cascade of glowing molten boulders tumbling down. Hiʻiaka tried to maintain the shield, but one massive chunk of lava rock struck Lohiau's back from behind. The shield couldn't cover every angle fully. He cried out, and fell to his knees. The rock rolled off, leaving a terrible burn and crushing injury. Hiʻiaka cried, "No," and caught him as he fell. Lohiau's face contorted in pain. That blow had been fatal. He coughed, a trickle of blood at his lips. "My love," he murmured. Whether to Pele or Hiʻiaka it was unclear. Maybe both. His eyes glazed, and he went limp. Lohiau was dead again, killed by Pele's anger.
Hiʻiaka cradled his lifeless body, disbelief and devastation coursing through her. She had just saved him from death. And now, due to her sister's madness, he lay dead in her arms. Around them, the lava flow began to encircle, though slower now as Pele paused the assault, perhaps to see if her deed was done. Hiʻiaka gently laid Lohiau's body on a slab of rock by Hopo's stone. Her mind was a storm of grief and unquenchable rage. She stood up, face streaked with tears, but eyes shining with dangerous resolve. In that moment she no longer cared about loyalty or consequences. She would avenge this injustice, but her pride held firm, and she remained atop Kealewa, waiting. Hiʻiaka turned to face the volcano. She raised her arms and called on every power of nature that was not under Pele's command. Ku Kain Lono. Hear me, ancestors of the sky and water. Lend me your strength. She was going to do the unthinkable,
douse Pele's fire. Hiʻiaka had one last recourse. Something only she, with her connection to life-giving elements, could attempt. The legend said if the volcano's fires met enough water, it would die. With a fearsome cry born of heartbreak, Hiʻiaka plunged her foot down onto the ground. Being a deity of healing the land, she had deep ties to the earth's layers. She stomped again and again, each strike causing tremors. The crater at Kealoha shook violently. Pele's siblings, still there, watched in alarm as cracks formed around Pele's feet. "She's breaking the foundations," they shouted. Hiʻiaka leaped into the air and slammed both feet down with divine might, and the crust near the shoreline split, opening a vent to the subterranean waters. A massive hiss sounded as groundwater began seeping into the hot strata. At Kealoha, the ground within the caldera cracked in descending rings. Hiʻiaka was metaphorically stomping through the layers of the earth. One layer, two layers, each corresponded to the historical lava levels in the crater. She was literally breaking down towards the water table. If the cold waters under the island rushed into the magma chamber, it would be a disaster. For Pele, possibly extinguishing her power source, or causing a tremendous explosion that could destroy the whole mount. Back at Puna, Hiʻiaka had gone almost into a trance, driving her heel into the ground as rocks and steam erupted around her. On her fourth stomp she felt a wetness. The next breach would let loose the water full. Her face was fierce, tears evaporating on her cheeks from the heat of her anger. Just as she raised her leg for the final blow, a voice shouted, "Hiʻiaka, stop." It was Pele rushing forward, daring to intervene. "Don't do it. You'll destroy everything, including yourself, including us all." Hiʻiaka panted, still poised to strike. Her rage was immense, but hearing loved ones' voices gave her pause. She looked at Lohiau's body, and Haupo's stone anguish. She looked up at the volcano. In her divine sight she could see Pele there, looking surprisingly small and frightened now atop her crumbling throne. In that heartbeat, Hiʻiaka remembered the centuries of love she had for Pele, how Pele had nurtured her egg, how they shared joys and songs once. Was she truly ready to kill her sister and potentially devastate the island to avenge these wrongs? It would be just, but her raised foot trembled, then slowly lowered. The ground was silent, except for the distant crackle of cooling lava. Hiʻiaka hung her head, tears dripping off her chin now. She could not undo the deaths, but she could refrain from adding more tragedy. Up at Kilauea, Pele saw Hiʻiaka cease, and felt a wave of relief and guilt. She immediately commanded the lava flows to halt. The fires in Puna died down to a simmer. Hiʻiaka turned away from the volcano, kneeling at Lohiau's side again. She was exhausted, emotionally, spiritually, physically, beyond anything before. She didn't even acknowledge Pele, who began making her way down, accompanied by her siblings. When Pele arrived on the scene, what she saw broke her heart. Hiʻiaka, face blank with despair, sitting beside Lohiau's charred corpse, gently stroking his hair. Haupo's stone looming, everything blackened and ruined. Pele, overcome with remorse, approached carefully. Her once blazing eyes were now full of tears. "Hiʻiaka," she whispered. Hiʻiaka flinched at the sound but did not look up. The silence was heavy. "Hiʻiaka, my dear sister." Pele tried again, stepping closer. "I have done a terrible thing. I see now, I was wrong. Please, if I could." Hiʻiaka's voice cut through, soft but deadly. "Don't." She lifted her gaze finally, fixing Pele with an expression of immeasurable hurt. "Not until you see what your distrust has wrought." Pele followed Hiʻiaka's eyes to Haupo's stone, to Lohiau's body, to the lifeless forest. Each sight was like a dagger in Pele's soul. She began to weep openly. "I cannot undo it. Haupo is gone. Lohiau. Oh, Lohiau." She reached to touch him, but Hiʻiaka shielded his body almost possessively. "You do not deserve to touch him." Hiʻiaka spat quietly. "Not after twice taking his life." Twice, Pele realized. Yes, he died heartbreak, and now by her own hand. The watching siblings hovered, ready to intervene if needed. But a deep hush fell as the two sisters confronted each other. After a long moment, Pele dropped to her knee. The mighty goddess bowed her head before Hiʻiaka. This was an unprecedented show of contrition. "You are right to hate me," Pele said softly. I have no excuse. My jealousy drove me mad. I broke both our promises. She looked at Hopo's stone. I promised not to harm Hopo and I did. And you kept your vow until I destroyed everything. Hiʻiaka's silence confirmed the truth. Yes. She had only acted after Hopo's death. Pele continued, voice trembling. If it would bring them back, I would offer myself. But even I cannot revive the dead. Not like you. She placed trembling fingers on Lohiau's hand, which was growing cold. You revived him once. I know. Is there any chance? Will you try again? Hiʻiaka's tears flowed anew because in her heart she wished to. But her spirit was drained and uncertain. Twice, I have now failed to keep him alive, she said, choking on grief. Perhaps even if I did. What then? So you can kill him a third time when anger strikes.
Pele recoiled, sobbing. No, never again, I swear it on my existence. If you can bring him back, he shall be free to choose his fate. Even if he chooses you over me, I will accept it. Or if he chooses neither and goes home, I will accept it. I have done enough harm. This vow poured from Pele sincerely. The shock of nearly losing her own life via Hiʻiaka's near flood, and what she'd done had changed her perspective, utterly. Hiʻiaka studied Pele's face, and saw genuine remorse and love. Perhaps love for them both. She did love Hiʻiaka deeply despite all. The other siblings murmured in support. Yes, sister, let him choose. This war must end. Hiʻiaka nodded slowly. Very well. For all our sakes I will try. For the last time. She motioned for Pele and others to stand back, summoning the very last reserves of her strength. Hiʻiaka began chanting once more the prayers of resurrection. But now it was harder. She was exhausted, and a soul restored twice to a body is nearly unheard of. Lohiau's spirit might have already journeyed far after this second death, maybe resentful or unwilling. The chant went on for hours into the night. Pele even added her voice in harmony in parts, lending her mana and pleading silently for Lohiau's forgiveness. At one point Hiʻiaka nearly collapsed, and Capo held her up. But she persevered. Finally, just before dawn, as stars faded, Lohiau's eyes fluttered. He stirred with a groan. Life returned to him once more. The gathered let out a collective sigh of relief and amazement. Lohiau was very weak but alive, blinking in confusion at waking to find both Pele and Hiʻiaka leaning over him, their faces streaked with tears and ash. He gave a faint, tired laugh. I seem to be causing a lot of trouble between you two. None dared chuckle, but his attempt at levity eased the tension. Pele bowed, and actually moved away a bit, allowing him to first focus on Hiʻiaka, who cradled his head gently. She smiled in sheer relief. You stubborn chief, welcome back again. He managed a small smile, then his eyes moved to Pele, and he remembered the horror. His face grew serious. He attempted to sit up, wincing. Hiʻiaka and another helped prop him. Now came the moment of choice. Pele spoke first, her voice humble and soft. Lohiau, I cannot ask your forgiveness. But no, I deeply regret all I've done. If you hate me now, I understand. I release any claim on you. You are free to choose where and with whom you will be. A hush held. Even the wind seemed to pause. Lohiau looked from Pele, radiant but sorrowful, to Hiʻiaka, loving, strong, equally sorrowful. He closed his eyes a moment, then opened them and said, she was everything. Passion, fire, excitement. But in death and beyond, I have seen other sides. Pele, your love is powerful but also dangerous. I fear I cannot live under the shadow of that temper, not as a mortal man. Lohiau then took Hiʻiaka's hand in his. Hiʻiaka, you crossed the world to find me. You gave me life not once but twice. You have been steadfast, brave, and your love, yes, I know it now, is healing and nurturing. With you I feel at peace, even amidst chaos. Hiʻiaka's eyes widened slightly at the direct mention of love, but she did not interrupt, her heart pounding. Lohiau continued, addressing both. I do love you both, in different ways.
But I cannot be both of yours, and perhaps I am not meant for a goddess's love at all. But if I must choose, he turned fully to Hiʻiaka, gazing into her eyes. I choose the one who stood by me with devotion and honesty. I choose you, Hiʻiaka, if you'll have me.
Tears of joy welled up in Hiʻiaka. She nodded speechless, then found her voice whispering, "I will." Pele shut her eyes, a single tear tracing down her cheek. Pain lanced her heart, yet beneath it she knew this was right. She had lost in this love triangle by her own deeds. Perhaps it was destined this way: creation and destruction, followed by healing. In a surprising gesture, Pele reached out and placed one hand over their joined hands. "Then I bless you both," she said softly. "Sincerely, may you have a life of happiness together. Lohiau, I release you from any pledge to me. Hiʻiaka, my sister, I hope one day you forgive me and we can heal as family." Hiʻiaka gave a small forgiving nod. "In time," she said, willing to try. The sun peeked over the horizon as this reconciliation occurred. Light spilled on the desolate land. Already small green shoots could be seen sprouting on the cooling lava. New life beginning courtesy of morning dew and Hiʻiaka's presence. The cycle of nature, destruction and regrowth, was turning. In the aftermath, Lohiau and Hiʻiaka, indeed, returned to Kauai together, with Pele and Wahine, Pauapalai, whose true home was perhaps with nature rather than court. Pele provided a fine canoe and safe winds, as promised, staying true to her vow to let them be. Back on Kauai, Lohiau resumed leadership of Hawaiian and took Hiʻiaka as his wife, or rather she took him as her mate. Their union was said to bring prosperity, crops flourished, and songs were sung of the courageous goddess and the chief who defied a volcano's wrath for love. Pele returned to Kilauea, lonely but wiser. She mourned Hopo and vowed to be kinder to Hiʻiaka's remaining friends. Over time, Hiʻiaka and Pele rebuilt their sisterly bond, though it was never quite the same. Yet, in Hawaiian chant and hula, their story, one of passionate fury and ultimate forgiveness, became a teaching tale of the dangers of jealousy and the strength of familial love. Some versions say Lohiau stayed only a while with Hiʻiaka before eventually succumbing to a natural death, as mortals do, after which Hiʻiaka returned to Pele's side. Others say Hiʻiaka remained on Kauai indefinitely, visiting Pele occasionally as a sister, but living out a peaceful life by Lohiau's side in the fertile lands she helped heal. And Hopo, her stone remained on Puna's shore, known forever as Kapahaku, or Hopo, gently swaying when the waves hit, a testament that even a goddess's rage cannot erase the memory of true friendship and love. The Loha forests did grow back, thanks to Hiʻiaka's healing influence, blanketing the lava fields in green and red blossoms within a span of years, showing that life and forgiveness will always, in time, overcome devastation. Thus ends the tale of Hiʻiaka and Lohiau, a saga of a love triangle drenched in volcanic destruction, jealousy, resurrection, and revenge indeed, but also of loyalty, growth, and reconciliation. It is a treasured story from Hawaiian mythology, reminding us that even among gods, love can lead to both great tragedy and profound redemption. Amama Unoa, the prayer is lifted, the story is free. And now, wanderer, the tale closes. The lava cools, the forests breathe again, and the lovers whose fate shook islands have found their rest. If this story of devotion, jealousy, and rebirth kept you company through the night, don't forget to subscribe and return to this temple whenever sleep feels far away. Before you drift off completely, tell me one thing in the comments below. What part of this story stayed with you the most? Was it Hiʻiaka's journey across the islands? Hopo's final dance? Pele's jealous rage? Or that last fragile moment of forgiveness? Your thoughts shape the next tale whispered in this darkness. Sleep now, wanderer, and may the night be gentle with you.